Stand up, New York Giant fans. It's a special live edition of the LockedOn Giants podcast. Entertainah, the Entertainah, joins me on this special edition of the podcast, brought to you in part by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the games start. We're coming at you right after this.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans. Stand up. You got a live edition of Entertainah tonight on the Locked On Giants podcast. And Chris, my friend, first off, welcome. Second of all, I got to learn how to do that stand up cheer.
You're pretty good at it. Let's practice again. I'm gonna get everybody in the chat amped up right now.
All right.
Big game coming up this week, guys. New York Giants 1-0 for the first time since 310 BC. We're trying to get to 2-0. We're going up against the Carolina Panthers. All the storylines in this matchup. McAdoo comes back to the New York Giants. Dave Gettleman Bowl. McCaffrey versus Barkley. We've got every storyline you can think of. Baker Mayfield, what he said about Daniel Jones, what he said about you as New York Giants fans. I need you to get out of your chairs right now. Stand up! New York Giant fans, let's talk some Giants football. I'm pumped.
All right, he's pumped. I got to still learn that. I got to take some lessons, but I'll get it. I'll get it eventually. So I'm pumped too. This is an exciting week. For those who don't know, my first week back from COVID, I was actually at the facility this week. So I got into the locker room, was able to put my finger on the pulse a little bit better. So much to talk about. You guys know the drills. First off, for those of you who are new, joining us for the first time, welcome to the Locked On Giants podcast. Those of you who have been with us, I think we've done several of these shows now. You know the drill. If you got a comment or question, pop it in the comments box, and we'll run them throughout the show. So, Chris, let's talk about, I guess the big thing for me, or one of the big things is, do we have a full idea yet on this Giant team? I mean, a big win coming against Tennessee, a very uplifting win. But can we sit here and say, okay, you know what, this team is better than we thought, or is it still too early? I think it's too early, but what do you think?
I agree. I think it's too early. The one thing that I think you take out of week one that I think you should be more optimistic about, Saquon Barkley is fully back. Like that was at least semi-questionable going in. Now it's not a question. We have vintage Saquon Barkley. We may have an even better version of Saquon Barkley than we've ever seen. That's how good he looked. And one stat that really popped out to me that I mentioned in my preview video, the pre-snap motion, the effectiveness in terms of the run game. He averaged 13 yards a carry in pre-snap motion this past week. He only averaged a yard and a half on the 6 carries in which they didn't have pre-snap motion. And that goes to Dable, that goes to Kafka in terms of operating and maybe hitting some of those big run plays. But Barkley looked 100% back. So I think that you could definitely take out of last week. I think the run blocking, when you went back and watched the game, was definitely up to par. The pass protection, major question mark. And we'll see. I still think the offense definitely has holes for sure. There's a lot to work on. I thought going into the year that they were going to have to rely on Barkley the first 4 or 5 weeks until such time Jones really picked up this offense. And on the defense, we still have a ton of question marks. And we're without our 2 best edge rushers. We're without Aaron Robinson. So by no means do I think New York Giants fans should be going into this game, thinking, oh, yeah, this is easy. We got this in the bag. And then we got Dak on deck against the Cowboys. No, it's 1 week at a time. We are still a team that can't take anybody for granted. And I would not be shocked at all if the New York Giants lose on Sunday. But that being said, you're not going to drain my optimism. You're not going to drain my hope. A great win, a great come-from-behind win last week by the New York Giants. And I do think at least there's some sign for hope, which as a Giants fan, haven't had that in a long time. So I think we're all hoping that they could go out there, find a way to get a win. I don't care if it's ugly or not, get to 2-0. And then suddenly you're looking at a Dakless Cowboy team and a Chicago Bears team, and you say, wow, this team could get out to a better start than a lot of people may have thought. But, yeah, no, this team is still has a lot of questions they need to answer before I'm like, okay, this team is going to be a lot better than I thought they were going to be before the year started.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you 100%. I think let's start on the offense. Last week, Saquon Barkley, I think he faced a loaded box. I want to say 5.5% of his carries, lowest in the NFL. You just know this week that Carolina's not going to, do that. They are going to load up the box. They're going to probably dare Daniel Jones to beat him with his arm. Now, Daniel Jones, I think he's capable of doing it. A lot of people are like, "Oh, why do you keep saying that?" Well, that's just the reality of the situation here. But the Giants possibly, well, we know they're going to be without Wan'Dale Robinson. He's been declared out with that knee injury. They may not have Kadarius Tony, who we're going to talk about a little later in the program. So, it comes down to getting Kenny Golladay involved, Richie James back involved, maybe David Sills getting some extra burn. I mean, can they get it done with that combination? I think they can, but I'm just trying to envision how it would vary because Tony and Wan'Dale Robinson, those are those short, quick, get the ball into their hands and let them do the heavy lifting, so to speak. These other guys, well, Richie James maybe is of that category, but these other guys, I don't know if that's really their forte.
Yeah, listen, you have to figure, like you said, Carolina's focal point is going to be to stuff the run and stack the box. Now, from an optimistic standpoint, outside of the way we were able to run the ball last week, their opponents, the Cleveland Browns, ran for 217 yards against this defense. And I would have to think that their game plan going into that game was to stack the box. I mean, they had Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, and we all know that the Cleveland's offensive mindset with their strong offensive line is to run the ball. Granted, they have a better offensive line than we do. So I'm not saying that they can't be a lot more successful against us than they were against Cleveland, but I think it should at least give you hope, regardless of what Carolina does on the defensive side of the ball, that we can have some success running the football, especially if we get a couple of extra blockers in there, 2 tight end sets, so on and so forth. And I think what the game plan has to be, if they do overcommit, you have to do exactly what we did the first play of that drive coming out. After we hit them with the big Barkley runs, we hit them with the big Shepard pass over the top. If they're going to give us those opportunities as a coach, and I don't think they will be scared to do it, you got to take your chances. And if they go above and beyond to limit Barkley, I do expect them to try to open this up and at least try to balance that defense up a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got to say, I love the play calling by Kafka and Dable. I like how they're mixing up the runs. There weren't a whole lot of runs right up the gut. There were some misdirections and, some outside runs. They're really, every coaching staff says, oh, we're going to put players in the best possible position to be successful. And then they don't do it. They kind of revert back to what they know and what they're comfortable with. This staff seems to be putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. Whether we win, whether we lose, I think I'm excited for the future of this team because I do believe that. And again, I don't want to go above and beyond. We'll see how he is as a head coach as we go throughout. But first game of Brian Daboll, I don't know how you could not be impressed with everything and what he did in that game. Whether it be his decision to go for it on 2, which I called at the start of the fourth quarter. I said if this game is tied with a minute or 2 to go. I mean, I'm sorry, if they're down by 1 after a touchdown with a minute or 2 to go, I said I expect them to go for it because they were on the road. He did exactly that. And I think with Joe Judge, a lot of us were so upset with Judge because he was so passive in moments like that. He wasn't willing to take chances. You didn't get that with Daboll. I think he made the correct decision there. Obviously, it worked out, regardless whether it worked out or not. The big challenge that a lot of people, I think, overlooked with 7 minutes to go in that game, the Titans had converted a huge passing play. It could have completely changed the ball game had Daboll not challenged that with his knee on the ground. It saved the Giants about 10 or 11 yards. Who knows how that drive develops for the Titans if the Giants don't get those yards back. It also gave them better field position on their game-tying drive. And, of course, the adjustments that they made as an offensive coaching staff at halftime on the road in his first game against a team like the Tennessee Titans, who were the number 1 seed in the AFC last year, who are fully acclimated to both sides of the ball. Mike Vrabel's been the head coach there for 4 years, going strong, so they don't have a lot of changes in terms of the offensive and defensive schemes. So for him to come out with that offensive game plan in terms of that adjustment at halftime and for them to be as successful as they were, you got to be really encouraged in terms of his coaching ability from an offensive standpoint between him and Kafka. And on the defensive side of the ball, tip your cap with the guys that we had out. For Wink to be able to come up with a game plan to stop Henry in the manner in which we did. I mean, I looked at the numbers after the game. He had 56 yards at halftime. His second carry in the second half, he had 18 yards. You take that away, he had 6 yards throughout the rest of the second half, or 8 yards, whatever it was. So the Giants did a phenomenal job on both sides of the ball.
Yes, they did. And Jordan Zamini says, when was the last time we could say that our previous coaching staff adapted at half? Yeah. When was the last time you remember seeing that?
Yeah. It's been a long, as a matter of fact, it's been the opposite. During that game, I was thinking about it because I've been on YouTube calling these games for this team now for the last 4 or 5 years. So obviously you pay a lot of attention in terms of the coaching decisions throughout the game. I was thinking back to my first year on YouTube, the game against the Philadelphia Eagles where Pat Shurmur was the head coach and Barkley was destroying them on the ground the entire first half. In the second half, they barely run the football. So in the past, it's been like the opposite, where you felt like where things were working, they would go away from it, or if things were not working, they wouldn't make the necessary changes in order to get things going in the second half. It was completely different in this game, and we had a much more aggressive defense as well.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about some of the new developments because, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on last week. I want to spin forward. Got to talk about Kadarius Tony here. Now, it's interesting. I happened to see on Twitter somebody who was sitting behind the bench filmed Kadarius Tony having his hamstring being worked on. And when I saw that, and folks, I apologize about this. I don't know who this person is.
He comes in the random stream, so yeah, I just ignore him. But if you give somebody a mod, there you go. Somebody blocked it.
Yeah.
If you give somebody a mod in the chat, if you like Afghanistan, he's a great subscriber of mine. He's
Afghanistan. You want to be a mod for me?
Yeah, you give him a mod, he'll take care of it, so you don't have to do it.
Okay, I don't know how to.
I think you're gonna try. There should be 3 dots on.
Yeah, I see the 3 dots, but
click that, and then it should give you an option to add moderator.
All right, let me see if I can get this. It says put user in timeout or block user. I don't want to do that, but all right, I'll try my best to keep up with it. But all right, anyway, what I was starting to say, let's talk about Tony. I don't want to let this idiot, whoever this is. Anyway, we saw there was a video out on Twitter that showed his hamstring being worked on. It is somebody from behind the bench saw it, and they taped it. So I saw that, and I was like, okay, maybe that was a part of the reason why Tony didn't have a whole lot of reps last week in the game. And then, of course, Tony practices on Wednesday, then he doesn't practice on Thursday, injured again. I mean, I don't know what to think with this dude. I see the talent. I feel that sometimes he's just been, butchered a little bit or picked on a little bit too much by the media. But gosh, you got to stay on the field, and I just don't know what the problem is with him.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you what. I as a content creator, I got to be honest, and I don't like to bash players at all. I try my best not to. And Tony got a little upset, it seemed, not just at me, but a lot of people yesterday that were, kind of saying that, yeah, he's had an injury history. By no means am I calling the guy soft. He's tougher than I'll ever be. He's out on the football field going up against 300-pound men, getting beat. But at the end of the day, in the profession that he chose in football, the most important ability is availability. You have to be able to stay out on the field to help your team. And he's had an injury history going back to college. I mean, at Florida, he only played 1 full season. Last year, he missed a number of games. This year, he was limited week 1, I think, even though Dable didn't say it, probably due at least partially to the hamstring injury that he had while he was in training camp. And now it comes out that he re-aggravated in practice yesterday. I know today from some of the videos I saw, at least from Jordan Renani, he looked like he was running good routes. So hopefully he'll be out there in some capacity. But that continues to be a major question mark with Kadarius Tony. Can the guy stay out on the field? I don't think anybody questions, Pat, his potential and his upside. But can he stay out on the field? And when you look at the way in which he plays in terms of his cuts and his frame, yeah, I think it's fair to question his long-term durability as a football player.
Yeah, it's a real shame because, the kid, he understands the playbook, what he's supposed to do, but Dable said it best. And, this is something I've said before. You got to be on the field. You've got to earn it. And, I think Dan Duggan was the one who posted a stat that of the 19 or so games that Tony's been in the NFL, he's been on the injury report 14 times, 14 weeks of those 19 games. That's unheard of. And
I think he's had like 8 or 9 different types of injuries too, if I'm not mistaken, like different parts of his body.
Yeah. So that's just wild.
He's definitely been, and I'm not blaming it on the turf. Okay.
Yeah. Can't blame that one on the turf.
He had the same problem with the Gators. So, yeah, I just hope he could stay healthy. You know, you just hope as a fan he could stay healthy because we know the impact he could have, especially if Barkley's going to go off. And it looks like he's going to. And defenses start to pay extra attention to Barkley. You think about the damage what a healthy Kadarius Tony could do in this offensive scheme, and it's scary. And I think that's why a lot of fans, when they hear the news about Tony, they're not like upset at Tony. They're just upset over the fact that he's not able to stay out on the field. And I think the venom from the fan base isn't really at Tony. It's more so at Gettleman and Judge for drafting a guy that was as injury prone as he was. It's not necessarily Tony's fault as early as they did, but he's got to find a way to stay on the field because if he stays on the field, he could be a really good playmaker for this football.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right. A2ZME. Is Golladay a complete bust, or does he still have something to offer? I wouldn't say that Golladay is a bust. I just question if he's a good fit for what they're trying to do. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I don't want to use the term bust because I still think he's a good receiver. He will never live up to that contract.
Definitely.
And it was kind of like the Solder contract in the sense that when he signed it, I knew he wasn't going to live up to it. You just hope that he had a big impact on the offense because it was a record-breaking contract or right there in terms of the market when he initially signed it. And he's not a record-breaking receiver, but that's usually what you do in free agency. You overpay to bring in a guy that you hope could produce at a big hole in your football team, and we certainly need help at that wide receiver spot. But we've said this countless times. I don't think Golladay is an ideal fit for this scheme. I do think that he could have a pretty good year, but I don't think you're ever going to see 2019 Kenny Golladay when he led the league in touchdowns. I don't expect that. But I think he'll be better than last year, but that's not saying much.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right. You're never going to see, you're never going to see that 2019 Golladay again. Which is a shame, but that's what happens that when you overpay. But let's talk about the offensive line. The Giants left guard, they were rotating again. I am not a fan of rotating offensive linemen. To me, if you're rotating, that means you're not sure which way you're going to go, or you're, trying to, figure out or give, in this case, the rookie Ojulari maybe some more reps, because remember, Bredesen and Ojulari both missed chunks of training camp with injuries. So, I just wonder if that's playing into it. But did one guy stand out more to you than the other?
I'm going to tell you. And I got a chance to watch Bobby Skinner's film breakdown. He does a great job with the offense.
Yes, he does.
Of course, a former offensive lineman. And I understand it because, like you said, you have a young rookie who's probably not quite ready to be the full-time starter, and Ben Bredesen stinks. So I understand that they're trying to get Ojulari some reps, but at the same time, they don't want to overdo it. I think he had 27 snaps and Bredesen had 33. I would expect that maybe to kind of reverse this week, and Ojulari maybe gets 33, Bredesen gets 27, because they did kind of say they're still going to do a bit of a platoon. And like you, I don't really like that. I thought that Joe Judge overdid it big time in his first year with all the musical chairs that he did on the offensive line. And I don't think we'll see that throughout the course of the year. I think it's trending towards Ojulari becoming the starter. They just may not feel he's quite ready yet to take a full game's worth of snaps. So I don't mind it too much early in the season. But in terms of their play, when I got a chance to watch Bobby's breakdown, they both struggled in pass protection. I think Ojulari finished with a 51 grade overall, and Bredesen finished with a 39. But when you watch the film breakdown, what I see with Ojulari, and he's got a lot to work on in terms of technique, which you expect for a third-round rookie starting in his first game, he has a lot of potential. For a man of his size, he is pretty agile, and he's pretty damn strong. I'm sure you saw the highlights of that pancake block he had on the touchdown run for Saquon Barkley. He was one of the players after the first week, because I expected to be impressed by Saquon. I've said countless times, I think Saquon's going to have a huge year this year for the New York Giants, so that didn't surprise me. One of the pleasant surprises for me, at least for me, off of week one, even though, like I said, he's got a lot to work on in terms of his upside, was Ojulari. I think he's good. I think he could be a very good offensive lineman.
Yeah, I think he can too. And then, it begs the question, who's going to be the left guard once Shane Lemieux comes back?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, if Ojulari's playing well, you roll with him. You know, he's the future. Shane Lemieux's not. So we'll see. We'll see if Ojulari gets that opportunity. If he does he run with it? Obviously, you're not going to bench Gawinski. So we'll see. That's a great question, but I want to see a little bit more of Ojulari this week. I don't expect to see, a full game's worth of snaps, but I'd like to see a little more from him this week because I did like some of what I saw specifically in the run blocking.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to give a shout out to JDJ. I was your first audio question on your pod. Glad to see you collaborating with Chris. Yep. Hey, appreciate that. Appreciate you checking out the pod tonight. Always appreciate having Chris on and Papa Guzzo and all of you guys who are coming on. Yes, including this knucklehead.
All right, I'm going to tell you how to do this so you don't have to keep worrying about this. You're on StreamYard, right, with the chat?
Yes, I am.
I don't want you to have to keep getting sidetracked. That's why I'm going to tell you. It's not bothering me. This guy, he goes into all my chats because he likes to rile people up. Go to the YouTube chat. So go right now. Go to your YouTube channel.
All right.
Click on the live stream.
All right, hold on. I'm going to go to my YouTube channel, and I'm going to go to the live stream. Okay.
And then you'll see the chat in the YouTube channel. And then from there, if you click the dots, you should be able to give Afghanistan or somebody a moderator.
Okay, that's how we do. All right, so let me see if I can.
I'll tell you right now, some of my best subscribers are in here. Lake Nona, you can definitely give him one. Davey,
all right, let me see.
Definitely give him one.
Afghanistan, I'm looking for Afghanistan. Check in for me, please, so I can see if I can get you a moderator spot.
Yeah, so that way, from now on, when we do these, you don't got to worry about it. They'll block them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay. Yep.
Add moderator.
Okay. Papa Guzzo, you got one. Let's see. Here's Afghanistan. Okay. You're a moderator.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you guys very much.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. And I don't know how to put this on slow-mo. Obviously, let's see. Pop-ups, toggle timestamps. Oh, gosh. All right. Who else do we need? So Papa Guzzo and Afghanistan, they two should be enough, you think, right?
That's enough, I think. I think two.
Okay.
It's only one guy.
That's good because it's this idiot is just
he's just one of those guys. He's got nothing better to do. And
apparently. All right, so now I can focus on this. Hi, Lou.
Sorry.
Lou says hello. Lou, let me just put you up there. Thank you so much. All right, folks, appreciate your patience. It's the first time I've had a troll come into the live chat. So anyway, the whole thing with the offensive line, how did you think they played overall? I mean, the pass blocking, you look at the pass blocking, there was some pressure given up. There were, I think, 4 or 5 sacks, but I was talking with a colleague and we were kind of debating if some of those sacks weren't on Jones or if they were all on the offensive line. I think it was a combination of a couple of the things, but what did you see on those sacks?
Yeah, I thought the first half specifically, and I think it would have continued throughout the game had the New York Giants not made adjustments. The interior offensive line was bad in terms of pass protection. It was really bad. You think Daniel Jones fumble. Yeah, I had people in my live chat during the game. Oh, Daniel Jones fumble. It wasn't his fault. He got the I think it was Bredesen on the play, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been a Zuda.
I think so.
Might have been a Zuda. I can't remember.
It was the left guard.
It was definitely the guard.
Yeah, it was definitely the guard.
But whoever it was the blind side, and they got beat before Jones could even complete his drop back. And it's one thing if it comes off the edge, maybe you could be like, you should expect that. There's no way a quarterback should expect an interior defensive lineman to get to him that quick. It was really bad on that play specifically. But throughout the first half entirely, in terms of pass protection, the interior offensive line really struggled. It got better in the second half because of the adjustments they made, because the Giants offense became less predictable because they started establishing the ground game. So that's why I continue to say it, regardless of what they do in this game, in terms of trying to stack the box, Giants have to commit to that ground game, because I don't think they're at the point, specifically on the interior, and even Evan Neal on the right side, even though he had a decent game, this game you're probably going to be going up against Brian Burns from what I've read. Yeah. He's probably going to go against Neal. So I don't think you could ask Jones to drop back 30 or 35 times, not because I don't think he's capable of doing it. I think he's a good quarterback, or at least a decent quarterback if he's got protection. I just don't think this offensive line is ready enough to be able to throw the ball 30 or 35 times in a game and give Jones, the time that he needs to be able to throw the football. So I think you got to lean on that ground game, and you got to hope that makes the offense less predictable, kind of like it did last week, where they have to commit to the run, and that opens up some opportunities in the passing game.
Yes, definitely. All right. A2Z me. Let's talk about Andrew Thomas. How good does he look? I
don't know if you remember this, because you're on Twitter, so you see what fans say.
Sure.
When we drafted Andrew Thomas.
Oh, yes.
After 3 weeks into his rookie year.
Yep.
People were saying he's the next Eric Flowers.
Yep, I remember.
I didn't forget. This guy now, call me crazy, I think he's reached an all-pro level. Like,
Yes,
he's
he
that
did.
caliber of a left. I'm not saying he's going to win it. That means you're the best player at your position in the sport. But he's now in that tier where if you tell me, Chris, at the end of the year, Andrew Thomas is going to be an all-pro left tackle, I'd be like, I could see it. Like, he's reached that level now. And I'm going to tell you the first thing, Patricia, that Joe Schoen needs to do at the end of the year.
Extend him.
Give him a 10-year contract. Get this guy under contract for as long as you possibly can. We know that the left tackle is a long-term position. It's not a position like running back that typically breaks down by the age of 28, 29. It's the second most important position on an offense. And the quicker that you can extend this guy on a lower market, the better, because as that market continues to increase, it's a much better contract. It's what the Dallas Cowboys did with Tyron Smith and a lot of their offensive linemen. They extended him 3 years into their career. They gave him 6-7-year extensions. Get it done. That should be the first big business for this Giants football team at the end of the year.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And they can structure it in such a way that it won't cripple their cap. And he is eligible, by the way, to be extended after this year because it'll be 3 years into his rookie deal. Get it done. I am totally with you. And Thomas was actually my pick to be a Pro Bowler, if I'm being honest with you. I said Thomas and Xavier McKinney were my 2 preseason picks. And you know the beautiful thing about Thomas, I had a chance to chat with him, in passing in the locker room. He's so grounded and modest. And when you tell him, God, man, you're playing awesome, he just looks at you and he says thank you and everything like that. But he's like, I got so much to clean up. He says, I got so much. He's so modest. He's not, some guys sit there and they puff out their chest and they're like, yeah, I'm the king. I'm the best. Not Andrew Thomas. He's so soft-spoken, so modest. I mean, how refreshing is that?
I love it's exactly what you want a New York Giant to be. Talented, hardworking. You've seen the work this guy's put in. You saw some of the nonsense he had to take early on in his rookie career, not mainly by Giants fans, by the way, mainly by the mass media. I remember watching people on ESPN. I remember watching Louis Riddick say that Andrew Thomas is a complete bust. He laughed off the pick, a year after he was in the NFL. This guy worked his ass off, worked his tail off, and now he's one of the premier left tackles in football. And if you have hope as a fan base long-term, it starts there for the New York Giants. You look at Andrew Thomas and you look at the potential in Evan Neal and you say to yourself, wow, with the offensive player core that we have with 2 bookend tackles, or at least that we hope are 2 bookend tackles for the next 7 to 10 years, if we get ourselves a quarterback where that means Jones develops further or we draft a quarterback that could play at a high level, this team could turn around real quick, and it starts at the offensive line. And I'm going to tell you what, say what you want about Dave Gettleman. He failed us big time.
Yep.
He did not fail us with that pick.
Well, if you think about it, Gettleman, let's give credit where it's due. Andrew Thomas, and then trading to get the pick that ultimately went for Evan Neal. Yeah. So
I'll tell you what, in the grand scheme of things, in 5 or 6 years, because I give him credit for the Evan Neal pick, like you said, that was the pick that we traded back with, and Dave would have taken Evan Neal. Anybody would have taken Evan Neal.
Sure,
we had Nate Solder on the right side. So in the end, he left us with Evan Neal, Andrew Thomas, Xavier McKinney. So at least he left us with something to build off of in terms of young players at very important spots on that offensive line. And now it's up to Joe Schoen to fill out the rest of the roster. But Andrew Thomas has been terrific. I think he's only going to get better. And he made Bud Dupree look like he was O'Shane Zimenez. Like Bud Dupree didn't even sniff. And
I didn't even hear Bud Dupree's name.
Didn't hear his name once.
Yeah.
He made Bud Dupree look like a 4th string edge rusher. Andrew Thomas is the real deal, Giants fans.
Yes, indeed. All right, folks, I got to run 2 commercials to show. I'm going to run one now and one in a little bit. This one's a quick one. We'll be right back after this. All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's special edition of the LockedOn Giants podcast live show with the Entertainah. But first, Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., Canada, and the United Kingdom. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. So go on, ditch boring car rentals and find your drive at Turo.com. That's Turo.com. Terms and conditions apply and exclusions apply. All right, Giant fans, thank you so much for your patience while we run the commercials. Got to pay for the podcast one way or another, so appreciate your patience. Chris, let's talk about the defense because I want the inside linebackers against Christian McCaffrey in coverage. That scares me. I mean, Tate Crowder and Austin Calitro last week were they had the two worst coverage ratings amongst the linebackers. Are you as concerned about that matchup as I am?
Of course. And I think I saw VT Jake said, talk more about the defense. I did talk about it earlier. Maybe you just popped in the stream. They did a tremendous job last week in terms of stuff for Derrick Henry. They did a tremendous job. And they were just as big of a reason as anything else why we won that football game. But in this game, I think that has to be a major concern, right? We even saw it last week, how bad they were in coverage in terms of the running back out of the backfield when they scored that touchdown for about 30 yards where he went untouched into the end zone. And Christian McCaffrey is a playmaker out of the backfield. He's their Saquon Barkley. Talking about a guy that had over 1,000 receiving yards one year. So that's definitely going to be the biggest mismatch in this game, along with Robbie Anderson on the outside. Definitely brings like that Deshaun Jackson type of receiver up against this defense, in which we're not even going to have Aaron Robinson, and you figure we're going to have to commit other players in terms of trying to stuff the run. So I worry about that too in terms of a guy like Robbie Anderson being able to take the top off the defense. But McCaffrey lined up against our linebackers for sure. That's a big mismatch, and in order for the Giants to try to limit it somewhat, I think you're going to see probably more safeties on the field than you did last time. These guys are not going to be able to cover him in terms of at the linebacker spot. And the other thing I said in my preview video that I expect the New York Giants to really try to do in this game, and this is just me thinking outside the box. By no means am I saying I'm a defensive coordinator, but just as a fan thinking like, what can they do in this game to try to create some turnovers? I look at this offense by Ben McAdoo. We know what McAdoo's going to do. He's going to get the ball out quick, right? When he was with me, it was called the 2-second offense. He comes to the Giants. Eli starts getting the ball out quick. So I look at that. I look at a quarterback that is still not completely adjusted to this scheme. And knowing that he's going to try to get that ball out quick, I am telling every one of my defensive linemen going into this game, get your hands up in the air.
Yep. And they worked on that. They worked on it this past week. They had a drill where they were getting their hands up and playing with like a volleyball.
I am harping on that this week because you're talking about a quarterback in Mayfield that is not accustomed to this offense. Doesn't have much chemistry with these wide receivers.
Not a tall guy either. So sometimes his passes isn't coming out high.
And he's going to be looking to get the ball out as fast as possible. So there's not going to be a lot of thinking involved in terms of letting routes develop. So if he's getting that ball out quick, get your hands up. You try to block some of these passing lanes, bat the ball up in the air. We may be able to create some turnovers. So I think that has to be harped on this week by Wink.
Absolutely. And to your point about putting more safeties on the field, Papa Guzzo asked that very same question. Not so much maybe to help with Aaron Robinson injury, but to maybe curtail the damage that Christian McCaffrey can do to the defense. I think what they're going to do is they're going to elevate Fabian Moreau from the practice squad. I think there might be a committee. It was asked of Wink Martindale this week. Could you see maybe using multiple players to replace Aaron Robinson? Aaron Robinson's still an up-and-coming player, so it's not like you're talking an all-pro just yet. But could you see multiple players? And I think that's what they're going to do. Just a gut feeling. I think you're going to see a rotation in there. Adoree will have 100% of the snaps or close to it. And you might see guys splitting the snaps at that other spot based on the package, the personnel, and the situation.
Yeah, I could see a bit of a platoon there for sure at the cornerback spot. Neither one of them is probably very good, if we're being honest with ourselves. So, yeah, if one guy's playing good, you leave him in there. But if he's struggling a little bit, maybe you see what the other guy could do. I think they'll probably start with the veteran. What's his name again off the practice squad?
Fabian Moreau?
Yeah, Moreau. Yeah, I think they'll start with him and see how he's doing. If he's struggling a bit, maybe you turn it over to the rookie. So we'll see. The other option they have, which from everything I've heard, they're not going to do because they don't want to touch him. You do have the option to shift Julian Love over too, right, to the corner. And
but I don't see that happening. I mean, maybe here and there, but I don't see that being the full-time solution.
No, I think eventually Robinson comes back, but I don't know how long the recovery is going to be. I saw somebody in the chat say it could be 3 to 4 weeks. So I don't know how long.
Well, it depends. I mean, didn't Joe Burrow have his appendix out this past summer, and he was back in a couple weeks, 3 weeks, something
maybe
like
he'll
that?
Be back.
It depends on, did it burst? Did it, how did they did they go in arthroscopically or did they have to cut him open? I mean, it really depends on how the procedure went about.
Yeah.
So I think
Well,
that's
obviously,
why
we gotta worry
Dable
about
just want
that
to
this
put it.
week. But the good news is, Aaron Robinson is out. When you look at our schedule, we're going up against Cooper Rush next week. So you hope you can get by with the cornerbacks we have there. And then you're going up against Justin Fields, who's not, So if it was going to happen where he's going to miss 1 or 2 games, this would be the time that you could overcome it potentially as a defense.
Do you have Adoree Jackson travel with DJ Moore? I know last week you did see Jackson traveling a little bit with oh gosh, now the name escapes me. He was traveling with one of the Woods for a little bit, and then they started moving him around and rotating. But would you have Jackson travel with DJ Moore?
Yeah, I think what I would do if I was winking this game, I would do exactly what you just said. I would have Adoree travel with DJ Moore, but I wouldn't leave the other corner on an island by himself basically throughout this entire game. I would have safety help over the top. I'd put the other corner on the burner, but have safety help over the top. So if he does get burnt, which is going to happen, you have a guy back there to play center field. I think that would be my game plan if I was going into this game. I don't think you could leave Robbie Anderson in single coverage on the other cornerback. But yes, I agree. I would say, Adoree Jackson, you got to man up DJ Moore. You're not going to have help. We're going to give all our help to the other side.
Exactly.
I think that has to be the game plan.
All right. Griminator X, what about shifting Darnay? I don't know if I would shift him to the outside. I mean, I know he played it in college, but I don't know that I would put him on the outside.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. He was bad in the slot last week, so I don't really see him excelling on the outside. He was probably our worst player in coverage last week. So no, I would not do that. I would not venture to do that.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it kind of ironic? They go and they have to create the hole. They cut James Bradbury a cornerback. They had no choice. I get it. Yeah. And now that position is just like, okay, now what do we do? I mean, nobody obviously saw the Robinson situation popping up, and now they added the depth in Moreau, and they have some other guys, Zion Gilbert, and a couple of other guys. I think that they were experimenting with, but. Gosh, isn't it ironic that the one position where you get rid of somebody or you lose somebody, and now all of a sudden, oh, guess what? Now we've got to figure out how we're going to plug the hole.
Yeah, I thank God it wasn't Adoree Jackson.
Tell me about it.
He's so important. I said it before the year stuff. I think the most indispensable player in this team is Andrew Thomas and then Adoree Jackson. Those two, they got to stay on the football field. And
absolutely.
I think we could overcome this, though. I really do, for a couple of weeks. I will say I was pretty impressed with Aaron Robinson, actually, for the first game.
He played well.
Which we were really nervous about. And it's one game, but I thought he played relatively well. And I do think at this point in time, he is our second best cornerback. So not having him out there hurts. But like I said, the fact of when it happened, I think we could find a way to get by these next couple of weeks until he gets back. But we'll see. It's definitely going to – Wink's definitely going to have to get creative with this defense. Let's put it that way. And without our two best edge rushers, he's got to find a way to get quick pressure on the quarterback. What I think they're going to do in terms of trying to create pressure, they got to overload that left side. Ike Ekwonu last week struggled, right? He gave up 2 sacks, albeit against Myles Garrett. But regardless, he's a rookie. He had a 41 PFF grade. I think they're going to try to overload that left side and try to create some confusion. We know that, we saw it in practice. You saw it more than me. You were at all the training camp practices. How much the Giants offense, until such time they really got used to going up against Wink's defense, how much trouble they had in terms of trying to operate their offense. And you're talking about a rookie left tackle, to see a defense that complex and that manipulative and that unpredictable. I think it could give a guy like Ike Ekwonu fits, not to mention Baker Mayfield, in a brand new scheme. So I do think they could create some deception and confusion for both the left tackle and the quarterback to try to create some turnovers. I think they got to overload that left side because their right tackle is very good. Yeah,
and I could see maybe sending a corner or a safety in, doing some fancy stuff like that. Wink said, he had said it from day one, we're going to dictate. We're going to be the bullies.
Yeah.
And, talking with Jihad Ward in the locker room and a couple, talking with Adoree, that's the sentiment, that they are going to come after you. And, it's funny because I was saying, well, you guys might be missing some guys. And they're like, doesn't matter. We're coming after you. We have a way. We're coming after you. So you could just kind of see the steel look in their eyes that, yes, we know we're down a couple guys, but we are definitely coming after you. So
we saw it on the last drive. I was even blown away by how much he did it. He did the same exact play with McKinney 3 plays in a row.
Yep.
He blitzed him off the edge 3 plays in a row in that last. He said, I don't care. We're going down swinging. And I think that's the mindset by Wink. The other thing that I love from Wink, and I'm sure you saw it on Twitter, and you were there probably when he said it.
Make some noise. He was basically his stand up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He came out and literally said, and I think as fans, like, they appreciate that. Like, it's like, you guys are a part of this. You guys are going to be a part of getting this team to where we need it to be. We need that home field.
Yes.
We need you guys to show up. And I think the fan base, I loved hearing it.
Right. It's a sense of ownership. It's like, it's none of the, and what I like about it is, this coaching staff, this regime, all right, they're not going to tell you everything, but they're giving the fans an opportunity to take part of the program by doing their part. Be loud, make noise. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I loved it. And I'll say this, I don't go to a lot of Giants games. I try to go to 1 or 2 a year. I'm going to the Bears game. I really am tempted to go to this game, but I don't think I'm going to go to the Bears game. But the common talking point, and to be fair, they haven't given the fans much to cheer about. So a lot of fans that have shown up the last 6 or 7 years have been opposing teams. But that's always been the reputation with Giants fans, is they have not been the loudest. They have not been the most boisterous, at least in recent times. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the team's been as bad as they have. And I think that's part of changing the culture, being more roused, being more aggressive as a fan.
And they're adding more bells and whistles to the game day presentation. I don't know if you saw it. I retweeted Pete Guelli's tweet about having DJs and fireworks and all that stuff. Because, one of the complaints a lot of people would say to me is, God, going to the Giants game is a snooze fest. Yeah. And then you throw in the bad football on top of it. Well, the Giants are really trying to bring things up to speed. So I tip my hat to them on that. And I think it's going to be an electrifying atmosphere, considering it's the first game of the year. It's not a playoff game, but I think it's going to have that kind of electricity that maybe you see in the early rounds of the playoffs. So
I'm going to tell you real quick before, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
I was just thinking about it as you were talking. I saw somebody say it today on Twitter. I don't remember who. This is what they need to do. Every once in a while you see on the Jumbotron, they'll show a player say, get up or whatever. They got to put Wink's speech on the Jumbotron on 3rd and long. Get those fans out of their ass and make some noise. That's all I'm going to say.
There you go. I like it. All right. T. Gerardo, I want to get to some questions here. We need more explosive plays to reduce the 3rd down play count. How should we attempt this? Maybe if you get the pass blocking, try a few more shots deep down the field. I think last week, if I'm not mistaken, then they only tried 1 deep pass. But then again, Daniel didn't really throw the ball a whole lot because they were, Barkley was the hot hand. So I would say maybe take some more deep shots if you can, if the pass blocking holds up. I mean, because again, you may not have Robinson, you may not have Tony. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you can, quick dump the ball off on a crossing route or a slant or something and let them take off. But what do you think?
Yeah, T brought this up to me last week. She said that she thought that was going to be a huge key in the game, is not just converting on 3rd down, but just avoiding 3rd downs. Right. She thought was a big key. Yeah, I mean, listen, to me, what's more important is having 3rd and manageable. Setting up 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 1s. That way, everything is open in the playbook. You could do a bootleg. You could hand off. When you get to 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, that changes everything. So, to me, it's important to get – obviously, you want to stay out of 3rd down if you can in an ideal world, but it's very important to get 3rd and manageable, which means not having a lot of negative plays. If there was one area that they really need to clean up, it is just that. The 3rd down conversions last week were pitiful. We were 2 of 10. Yeah. Defensively, we were good. They were 3 of 11. Right. But offensively, that's something we need to clean up. And
that's been a problem, going back to last year too. So
yeah, we got to get much better in that area. But I do think they're going to come out trying to run the ball much earlier in this game. Yeah, and I do think we're going to run it more effectively than some may think.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, just establish the tempo. I don't think they ever really did that in the first half of that game last week. Just get the tempo under control and then take it from there.
I'm going to tell you one more thing, because I'm thinking about it as I'm talking to you, and I see JC Silva say less Daniel Jones runs. Listen, I was nervous last week with Daniel Jones because he took a couple of pops. I think he had 6 carries. But I'm going to tell you what, in this game, against this defense blitzes a lot. They blitzed 33% of the time last year, which was 3rd in the NFL. With the game that Saquon Barkley had last week, they have to respect Saquon. I'm telling you right now, Daniel Jones is going to have a big run in this game because they're going to overcommit to stop Saquon, and he's going to hold it on the RPO.
Yep.
It's going to be off to the races. Daniel Jones is going to have one or even two potentially big runs in this game. The opportunity is going to be there.
Absolutely. And that's a great point because they have to account for Saquon, and they're going to probably have to account for Daniel. So that's going to open things up.
Yep.
Wide open. So a good point. All right. Tim McElroy, do you think we'll get Bellinger more involved at tight end? I don't know. I think I see where you're coming from with the question with the potential of Tony and Robinson both being out. But I don't know. The tight end in the passing game with Dable, correct me if I'm wrong, they don't really rely too heavily on the tight end. I mean, I know Dawson Knox is a pretty good receiver up in Buffalo, but it was more to the receivers, right? They didn't really feature the tight end. I could be wrong here, but I don't recall them featuring the tight end that often in the passing game. Am I right?
I love Dawson Knox's stats, but that was always my mindset as well with the Buffalo offense. Knox last year, he had 587 yards. He did have 9 touchdowns. I think the usage of the tight ends is going to be that. I think they're going to try to utilize them in the red zone. That's where I think you'll see a lot. They may catch a lot of touchdowns. You saw Myrick catch the touchdown this past week. But in terms of plays from 20 to 20, I think they want to, especially early on in the year when we know the offensive line is going to struggle, they need these guys in there to block. And I think that was the main reason why we drafted Bellinger in the first place, being that he was supposed to be a good blocker, has sure hands. But, he's kind of what Kyle Rudolph was supposed to be, a guy that can catch the ball, but he's known as a guy that could be, more of a blocker. So I don't expect Bellinger to really have many big games. He may catch some touchdowns when we get inside the 5, but I don't expect them to try to utilize the tight ends a ton in the passing game. I think Barkley's going to catch a lot of balls this year out of the backfield. As you saw that week 1, I think he had 5 or 6 catches. But I don't think they'll utilize the tight ends a ton in the passing game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, folks, I got one more quick commercial to run, and then it's all Giants the rest of the way. So just bear with us. Coming right back. All right, Giant fans, we have more coming your way here on this special edition of the LockedOn Giants podcast, a live edition with the Entertainah. But first, BetOnline is the only place that offers the best information on the latest odds, contests, and player props for all your sports betting needs. No matter what sport you're into, BetOnline has you covered. Plus, they offer everything you need to know for live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head on over to BetOnline today to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline, where the games start. All right. Thanks, Giant fans. Welcome back. We've got Trina and Tana live, and we'll go a few more minutes because Tana, I think you're doing a show, at a quarter of? You got to jump?
No, we got plenty at the 9:45.
Oh, we got time. Okay. I thought you had to jump off. So
I can hang out with you all night.
Oh, awesome. Maybe I'll come join you guys. Actually, I have to finish a couple of articles. I've got 2 player features that I did this week. I'm really excited about.
You got a feature on. Or maybe you don't want to say.
I guess I could say. I can. I mean,
Richie
James. Richie James. Yes, Richie James. His comeback story. Very interesting. Very interesting comeback story. I don't normally reveal who I'm talking about until I have the story written, and it's almost written. But Richie James, I had a chance to talk to him one-on-one. Fantastic guy, and my gosh, what a comeback story! I can't wait to write that one up. It's started, but I've got to put it together. So. That's going to probably
forgotten about player week 1. He had 1 drop, which was a big drop, but outside of that, definitely stepped up in terms of being a receiver. But I think even more importantly, he had a couple of big punt returns, including
especially that
on that final drive where I think he picked up 25 or 30 yards to kind of get that drive set in motion. So Richie James is a weapon in terms of it being a punt returner. You could see it.
Yes, absolutely. And then there's one other guy. And you know what? I'm going to let you guys figure it out, because if you go and you look at Thomas McGahee's transcript, there's a question I asked, and you could probably figure out who the other player is that I did a story on, because, I've covered the team for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot about the history, and I made a comparison to Thomas McGahee about this player that he has now versus a player that he coached years ago.
Well, it's a special teamer then, right?
It's a special teamer, yes.
So okay, I'll have to think about it.
Something to think about. It'll come to you. It's kind of obvious if you think about it, but I can't give it all away. I mean,
No, I don't really
I'll give you guys something to think about. Why not? So, all right. JC Silva has a great question. Will Slayton be active? Good question. Could Slayton be? I mean, Slayton's not really one of these, dump it over the middle and let him pick up the yak type of guys. I don't think. He's more of a outside, run and take off and pick up the yards after the catch. That's why I'm wondering if, I think Richie James could potentially have a big role, or a bigger role, I should say, not a huge role.
Especially if Tony's not playing.
Especially if Tony's, and I'm not confident Tony's going to play, by the way. I know he's listed as questionable. I think Papa Guzzo asked that, is he going to play? I think he's listed as questionable. Hamstrings you got to be careful with. And I could see them holding him back because, as I mentioned earlier in the show, Tony last week, somebody filmed him having his hamstring worked on during the game.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised nobody else really picked up on that, because it was like, I thought, oh, okay, maybe that had to do with, him not getting called as often as need be. So
yeah. As far as Slayton goes,
I think he will be active, but
I'll lean so. I think
I would think so.
I hope so, because I do think he could add something to this offense. Just his speed on the outside. Even though I don't know how many deep balls we're going to be able to throw, because we'll see if we can hold up blocks, but just his threat on the outside helps open up the rest of the offense, because you have to account for that as a defense. So I hope he is, because I do think he had some value to this wide receiver.
Sure.
I don't want him to be a featured receiver, but I do think he can add some value.
But he can contribute.
Yeah, so I hope he's active, because I do think you think about the Sterling Shepard play last week.
Yep.
I can see Slayton having one play like that in a game that changes the game just based off of his speed. So,
and we forgot to mention Shepard when we were talking about guys potentially getting the ball and picking up the yards after the catch. Shep looked pretty good on that big 65-yarder that he caught.
Yeah,
I mean,
it kind of reminded me, I think, of last year when I think he caught a big touchdown week 1. But the thing with Shep has always been, can he stay on the field? When he's on the field, he produces. And he's one of my favorite players on the team.
Love the guy.
Great leader. Seems like a great guy. So I was so happy for him. And him and Saquon, beyond happy for both of them, because I think Saquon specifically, because I don't think the fan base has really come down on Shepard. He's kind of a fan favorite, and he didn't have near the expectations that Barkley had. For Saquon specifically, I was so happy for him.
You and me both.
After week 1, with some of the nonsense he's put up with over the last couple of years. So
he's been through a lot. And that's for sure.
And I think he's going to have a huge year.
I hope so. I want to see him stay healthy, and I want to see him kick butt, because he's just he's so underrated, just a super guy. He's never been voted a team captain, but he's the longest tenured guy. And he's a leader in his own right. Very interesting how he views himself. And I just have a ton of respect for him. Because he's just, he comes to work, he puts his head down, does what he has to do, and goes home at the end of the day, So I respect guys like that. Papa Guzzo, thank you. I feel great. I'm glad my voice is back finally. So thank you. It was a long haul there with COVID. For those of you who know, I had COVID mid-August, so it took me a few weeks to really get over it fully. But
you feel better. That's good.
Oh yeah, I feel great. I feel absolutely great. I've got energy back. I mean, I'm sleeping better. I mean,
I saw the videos. You're back at the facility.
Yes, I'm back at the facility. I went back for the first time this week because you got to make sure you're totally rid of everything. And I was still coughing a little bit last week, and I said, you know what, I don't want to go in and I don't want to infect anybody, because I think people get mad at me if I did that, even though I wasn't contagious or anything. Nowadays, if you go out in public and you start coughing, people are like,
yeah, of course,
they give you the looks. So I was trying to be considerate for what it's worth. So you're welcome, Giants. You're welcome, Giants fans. But let's talk a little bit about, we've been talking about the Giants on defense, the on offense as well. Let's talk about that Carolina defense, if we could, for a moment, because last week, the Giants struggled a little bit with Jeffrey Simmons. This week against that Panthers defense, that's a tough customer too. And we mentioned the offensive line and blocking and all that stuff, but if I'm not mistaken, doesn't Phil Snow use a lot of stunts and twists and stuff up front? So are you concerned about that? I mean, I know the Giants got a mostly veteran offensive line, but are you a little concerned based on, I guess, maybe being gun shy from the past, or do you think we'll be able to get by with that?
We're going to see a completely different look this week because now you're going up against the 4-3. Last week we went up against the 3-4. I don't think we'll be as tested in the interior because I don't think their interior is as good as the Titans. But Brian Burns scares the hell out of me off the edge. I mean, he's super quick. And if he's going to be paired up on Neal, I could see that being a mismatch. I mean, Neal's a rookie. You're going up against one of the better edge rushers. So I worry a lot about that. I still worry about the interior because I think that's a weakness of our offensive line. I just don't think it's as big of a mismatch as it was last week. But I do expect to see a lot of pressure for sure. And I expect to see them blitz. Like I said, they blitzed the third most in the NFL last year. So they're going to be aggressive. And the coaching staff is going to have to do a good job. Maybe they have to roll Daniel Jones out of the pocket. They need to find ways to be able to give him some time to throw the football when they do decide to throw. And to combat that, we didn't really see, off the top of my head, we didn't really see a lot of screens last week. And, and I didn't.
The ones we did were, the blocking wasn't sharp.
Yeah. So maybe if they're going to be aggressive, maybe that's one way to try to combat that. Maybe you try to throw a couple of screens to Barkley out of the backfield. They're going to have to get creative, though, in terms of, trying to take advantage of them when they do get ultra aggressive. But Burns is the guy I worry about. I think you're going to have to give Neal a little bit of help on that side.
Yeah, I think, and that's where the tight ends will come in, I think, for sure. Jordan Samiti, I wonder if Kafka calling from the boot gives him a better perspective. I haven't seen a Giants coach do that in a while, and I feel like it helped. I agree. I totally agree. I'm trying to think the last time they did that. Gilbride, I know, was on the sideline. Magadoo was on the sideline. Shermer, obviously, on the sideline. Garrett on the sideline. You'd have to go back, way back.
Yeah, we talked about you brought.
I can't remember. I can't remember the last time. It was a long, long time ago. So, yes, I think he definitely
was up in the booth. Remember that when he got hurt that one time?
Yeah,
he was up in the booth. I remember that. But
yeah, I remember that. But yes, it does give you a better perspective because it's like watching the All-22. Yeah. Whereas you can't really see that on the sideline. That's why I never really got the fascination with standing on the sideline. I've known people who said, "Oh, it's better to be on the sideline." You can't see the All-22. Yeah. So I mean, you could see the the play in the pit really well, but not the whole thing. And whereas if you're up high, that's why sometimes in the press box I like to go up to the very last row because then that gives me even a higher perspective and I can see the All-22. It just makes such a difference for sure.
Yeah, it's almost like having another set of eyes, right?
Because yes.
If you're down on the field, I mean, Dable and I think Dable and him are pretty collaborative in terms of the offense. But if they both have the same vantage point, they're both seeing the same thing. You put Kafka up in the booth, you get two sets of eyes. So I think it's a good idea putting Kafka up there.
I think it's a great idea, and it's working so far. So, all right, Chris. The Jets have JETS, Jets. Yeah. Vikings have Skull. Other teams have chants. Duran Osmond's got a great idea for a Giants chance. I'm going to lay this on you, man.
Okay.
Fee, fi, fo, fum. I love it. Duran, that is so awesome.
I like it.
Giant fans, if you are going to the game this weekend, please get that started. I think that's cool.
Fee, fi, fo, fum.
Why not?
I can do that.
All right. I like it.
I'm not trying to toot my own horn. Maybe a little stand up. Everybody gets out of their seat.
That's before the game. You can do a stand.
Yeah, right before kickoff. Stand up, New York Giants. But no, you're right. We need like a chant. We need.
If I ever come across Pete Guelli in person, I'm gonna share that with him. I'm gonna say, look, we got to get a stand up, and then maybe the fee fi fo fum.
I like
Pete, if you're watching this, there's your idea. You're welcome. I don't know if the Giants marketing people watch these shows, but I thought that was a great idea. Good. So kudos to you, Duran. That's one of the comments of the night. So thank you for that. All right. Fabian wants to know how many games in critics push the panic button for the Giants. You know what, Fabian? I have a feeling, and I hope the heck I'm wrong, but if the Giants lose this weekend, I could see the negative Nellies waking up.
Oh, the negative Nellies will wake up the second Daniel Jones throws an incompletion. But in terms of I think it'll take more than just this game. I think if they lose to Dallas, then people really start to hammer. But at the end of the day, I'm going into this year, like I said at the start of the year, with just the mindset of I want to see growth over the course of the year. They surprised
Yes.
this week one, which is obviously going to up expectations a bit and make you more excited as a fan. But you're not going to see me flip out if this team looks sloppy this week and even the week after that. Like I said, I think it's going to take some time for us to really see this offense start to click due to the fact that the offensive line's never played with one another. Daniel Jones is learning a new scheme. These wide receivers really haven't had a lot of, experience in this scheme with Daniel Jones. So if they revert back to poor play this week, I'm not going to be happy from within the game, but I'm going to look at the broad picture.
Yeah, you want to see little progress each and every week. Are there going to be games that they're going to lose? Yes. Everybody said they shouldn't have won last week.
Right.
And they did. People are saying they should win this week. Maybe they don't win this week. So you got to look at the big picture. Absolutely. And I know that sounds like a cop out because now the games start to count. But realistically speaking, who has this team to the Super Bowl this year? I don't. I mean, let's be realistic. Too many holes.
No.
Could they make the playoffs? Sure. Anything could happen.
I think they could. Yeah.
But Super Bowl, I don't see it. I think, a lot of stuff would have to happen and stuff that's out of their control at that point. So, all right. No Mets, no Jets. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets. Can Kafka communicate to Jones if a wide receiver's open? No, the helmet turns off, I think, with, 15 seconds before the play clock ends. It's something like that.
I know he can't talk to him while he's
you can't do that. So no, that's a no, unfortunately. Let's see. I'm looking at some other questions here. Let's see. You need to have license plate guy. Yeah, I'd be up for that.
A little spoiler, Tim. And I would definitely do it on this show too. He's gonna be on my channel tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that. I've had LPG on the channel before, so
I have too.
Yeah,
love LPG.
He's an awesome guy. I've gotten to meet him, I think 2 or 3 times in person. So
got a big heart, and I love how he, he tries to help Giant fans. He tries to give back. I retweeted something earlier today about Captain Morgan is running a contest for Fan of the Year or something like that for each team.
How is it not him?
I mean, how is he not in? That's like Saquon Barkley not being nominated for FedEx Ground Player of the Week.
Come on,
explain that to me.
He literally goes to every single game.
Right.
The guy's flying to London so he doesn't miss a game.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. He's the
I don't understand that. I mean, how is he not in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
That's like I said, Saquon Barkley wasn't nominated for FedEx Ground Player of the Week. I don't get that either, by the way. So
explain this to me.
Explain it to me.
He wins NFC offensive player, not just running back, offensive player of the week. And he doesn't even get nominated, let alone win. He wasn't in the top 3 running backs according to FedEx. And the first thing I said when I saw that, from now on, I'm ordering from UPS. No longer ordering from FedEx. I'm done with FedEx. Like, what are you doing? Like, how
my gosh.
Disrespect? He led the league in rushing with only 18 carries, and he went up against the league's best run defense in football last year. Jonathan Taylor went up against the freaking Texans.
I
know. What are we talking about here?
I don't get it, man. I don't understand a lot of things, and that one I certainly don't understand. So,
and I'm going to tell you what, he is on a revenge tour.
Yes, he is.
He outplayed Derrick Henry. Now he's got McCaffrey. Then he's got Zeke. He's going to check them off 1 week at a time.
Yep. And this is a big one, the running back bowl, as you said, at the top of the show. So, all right, amazing guy. Why can't this team ever be healthy at the same time? Amazing guy. Not a whole lot of teams, I think, are ever healthy at the same time. You're always going to have injuries. Football is a violent sport. I know you guys don't want to hear it, but stuff happens. I mean, did anybody anticipate Aaron Robinson was going to need his appendix out? No. I mean, you hope for the best.
That is such a Giants thing to happen.
It is. And I think we're all conditioned. It's like Pavlov's dogs. You know how you react to something? It's like, oh no, not again.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of reminds me of. It's like, oh no, we've got an injury. So now we're going to be the worst, the highest injured team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Give Dable and the sports, and I'll mention this because I was talking to somebody about this. Dable brought in a new strength and conditioning staff. They brought in new sports scientists. They're learning about these players. You got to remember, everybody's still learning about one another. They're learning what works, what doesn't work. Everybody's different. So I, for one, sit here and I say, okay, look, I like to think that in time, the injury situation is going to subside a little bit. It's still going to be there because
Yeah.
every team gets injured. But it takes time, I think, for some of the methods and the techniques to really take hold, take root. And I know there are different things that they're doing to kind of keep the players healthy. Somebody asked me this once, well, what do they do behind the scenes? They've got yoga, they've got stretching, they have massage, they have chiropractic treatments, foam rollers, they have, they do the weightlifting and stuff. They have the hot tubs, they've got everything under the sun. But, at the end of the day, you can't protect against a broken bone.
Yeah.
I think I saw a stat that said concussions are down league-wide because of the Guardian caps.
Mm.
And some of these soft tissue injuries, like the hamstring issues and stuff, are guys warming up properly? Are they, what are they doing to train and recover? So, that part I don't really know. And I don't profess to be a sports scientist, but trust me when I say they are honed in on this situation. They are very much aware that this team has been up there amongst the league leaders in injuries.
The league leader since
Well,
since 2009, I think it is, when you add it all
and
up.
might I also point out, for what it's worth, when Aaron Wellman was here, they were like in the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
So this goes back to what I was saying about sometimes you got to let it kind of take root a little bit and see, just like we're going to hopefully see progress week after week with the football part of it. Hopefully we start to see progress, month after month, if not year after year, with the sports science part of it.
And the other thing we need to improve too, and I agree with you, that can't get worse. It could only get better over the course of the next 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Like, there's no way we're going to be as injured as we've been. It's nearly impossible. But the other thing we need to do as a football team, we need to improve our depth.
Yes.
You look around the NFL, the Ravens have a ton of injuries last year. They still were competitive. Like, teams find way. The Giants, because of how poor they've built their team and how poor they've drafted, they're a team.
And the cap.
Yeah. And and the cap. And a sport that, like you were just saying, is so driven by injuries. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. There's going to be injuries. It's football. It's a contact sport. The Giants, you look at the roster, they don't have anybody at several positions if some of these guys go down. So they got to start drafting a lot better too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they drafted 11 guys, and how many guys are they missing now? So that's part of the factor too.
Yeah.
So, this goes back to, I don't want to beat a dead horse with this cap situation, but the cap really, really screwed this team over because you can only draft so many players. They drafted 11 guys, but they have some guys sitting on IR now. And they weren't able to.
Like you were saying, Belton this time, McKeithen's out for the year. Like you said, 3? Thibodeaux, of course. So, like, Wandale Robinson.
Bellinger. Not Bellinger. Beavers. I'm sorry.
Beavers, yeah.
Beavers.
That's half our rookie classes already.
Belton missed the first week. Yeah. So you can't, in time, this draft class is going to fill in, and they're going to be kind of like the caulk that fills in the cracks. But you also need more to kind of fill in the holes in the wall, so to speak.
Yep.
And they'll get there. The cap's going to be a little bit better next year. There's still going to be some whole carryover because, Shane had no choice but to redo some contracts that I think are still going to be on the books come next year. But it's going in the right direction. But my gosh, I saw this cap situation coming last year. I was talking about it, I think in April, I was talking about it to a colleague. I said, my gosh, Gettleman better know what the heck he's doing, because if this team gets racked by injuries, it's going to get ugly.
Yep, and it did.
And I wish I had been wrong, because I saw it coming with what they were doing. But
they swung for
it is what it is.
They took a big swing. When you take a swing like that and you miss, it gets ugly fast.
It sure does. Absolutely. All right, Tim McElroy, will Roche be promoted again from the practice squad? Worried he'll be subject to waivers if a player gets promoted twice. Right, that is the rule. Will he get promoted again? I don't know. I think Fabian Moreau definitely. I don't know. I don't know that they will. You know what? I could see potentially, like you were talking earlier, if they're going to overload one side and maybe get some of the safeties or maybe do some inside linebacker stunts or something like that, do they need Roche for that depth? or do you think they can get by without him?
Here's what I'll say. If I was Shane or Dable, whoever, I guess Dable probably has a little bit more to do with that decision, or maybe even Wink is going to be involved in that. I wouldn't worry if by calling him up, I could potentially lose him to waivers, because every team in the league had an opportunity to sign him and they didn't. And if somebody does, they do. If you feel like Roche is going to help your defense this week, especially with how thin we are at that position, I think you bring him up. You know, you bring him up and you see what you can do. But whether or not he's a guy that they feel like they're going to need this week, that remains to be seen. My guess would be there's a good chance he gets called up, similar to like he did last week, because obviously Aziz and Kayvon probably aren't going to play. So he may get called up. But if that happens, it happens. If we lose him, we lose him. But I don't think you can worry about that. If you feel like he's the best player that could help your team this week, as thin as we are at that position, I think you got to bring him up.
Absolutely. I agree with you. All right. Larosity asks, any hint on who was in for A-Rob at CB? My guess is we've been talking about it all show. Fabian Moreau, I think, is somebody to keep an eye on, but I could see that being a committee type of approach. Wink Martindale was asked about that. Could you potentially use multiple guys depending on the situation? He didn't rule it out. But I do think Fabian Moreau is going to be a guy that gets called up and who maybe gets a start at that spot. They're really, really thin right now. Once they get Rodarius Williams back, that's going to help. He's currently sitting on IR. He's got to be on IR another 3 weeks at least, assuming that he's healthy and ready to come off of it. So yeah, that's, the other cornerback, the guy from special teams, McLeod.
Yeah, McLeod. Yep.
He's going to miss the game. So they're going to be down a couple cornerbacks. So yeah, you definitely got to call somebody up there. Could they call up 2 cornerbacks? Possibly. I don't think that they will, but you can't rule that out. Could they maybe call up Zion Gilbert as well? Wouldn't shock me.
And like I said, in a pinch, even though it may not be the plan, you could shift Love. If you have a couple of injuries, you could shift Love, and in a pinch.
In a pinch, yeah.
So, I doubt they call up 2 corners due to that. But I think in the end they're going to go with, like you said, I think they'll go with the vet. I think they'll go with Morrow. That would be my guess. And see how he does and see if you can get by with him for a week or 2. That'd be my guess. That's what it seems like where it's trending.
Yeah, absolutely. VTJ, Vermont Jake, sport trainers have been in doubt from Giants fans for a long time now. Jake, just want to clarify something. The trainers treat the injuries. Everybody seems to think that they are responsible for preventing the injuries. That's strength and conditioning. It's a little different distinction here. Part of strength and conditioning is you have the dietitians, the nutritionists, and all that stuff. The people who do the stretching, lead the stretching exercises. The trainers are like doctors. That's like saying, well, the doctors are responsible because I got COVID. No, the doctors are not responsible that I got COVID. They treated me for COVID. I'm responsible for getting COVID because I didn't protect myself.
Comparison, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I see that a lot. I know a lot of people are down on Ronnie Barnes, but I see where you're coming from, but that's just not.
I think it's like every issue on this team, Pat, is like people, and I'm not at all VTJ. I'm not saying anything bad about you. I just think like when it comes to a problem on a team, and usually it's multiple variables as to why the team is struggling. It's not because of one individual or one, people blame the turf, and for the offense, people will blame Daniel Jones or they'll blame Evan Ingram. It's multifaceted. There's a lot of things that go into it. Why we've had so many injuries. It's not one individual. And Ronnie Barnes is in the Ring of Honor. He's supposed to be a world-class doctor. So I don't think he's the main reason why the New York.
Let me tell you something about Ronnie Barnes, a little FYI. When somebody has an issue and you go to Ronnie Barnes, he gets you the best care. And I speak from experience. When my father years ago was having a heart issue, I wrote to Giants PR. I said, hey, just for the heck of it, do you guys know of somebody? Because I didn't know where to take my father. And they went to Ronnie, and Ronnie recommended a guy who at the time was like the 3rd best heart surgeon in the country. He was based out of New York, and he treated my dad and saved my dad's life at the time.
Wow, that's a great story.
And I also know a couple. The Giants had an employee years ago when this person came down with cancer. They got her right into Sloan Kettering. which had to wait, I think, or I don't know if it had to wait, but sometimes you have to wait when you're a new patient.
Yeah.
So when Ronnie picks up the phone and makes a call, he's that well respected, folks.
Didn't he? Wasn't there? I can't remember off the top of my head, but wasn't there a story with Logan Ryan too, where his wife?
Yes. Yep.
Wasn't he involved in that?
Yes, he was. Well, that's Ronnie and I forget who the assistant trainer was, but they basically told her, get to the emergency room. Don't wait.
Yeah.
And had she waited,
yeah,
who knows if she would have survived. I remember that story because she had an ectopic pregnancy, if I'm not mistaken. And that's dangerous because if you don't get that taken care of, you can die from internal bleeding. So absolutely. I remember that very well because that resonated with me, obviously. So yeah, Ronnie Barnes, I know a lot of you may be down on him, but he's really, he's not the issue here. I can, it's a combination of things. And hopefully, like I said, as this new strength and conditioning staff and this new sports science staff gets to know the players, and remember, they're learning the program, how Dable's running stuff. There's so many variables. Hopefully the injuries start to go down as we, get further and further into the Dable era.
Yeah, for sure. I think they will. But like you said, like everything else, I think it's going to take some time.
Absolutely, it's going to take some time. All right, let's see. I'm looking real quick for some other questions here. Let's see. KT is out. They need him for pressure. I'm just trying to get caught up. Some stuff.
That's a good question by LA Sports. I don't know if you see it about Saquon.
Oh, I missed it. What did he ask?
I'll just read it. Hey, guys, if Saquon continues to play this way, the way he did on Sunday all season, do we re-sign him?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes, too.
Yes. I don't go crazy. I don't sign him to a huge, top running back contract, but I do re-sign him. Maybe I give him a 3-year type of deal.
Listen, at the end of the day, and I understand he's a running back.
Yes.
This is a big play league. That's what the NFL is. It's a big play league. And I don't care that he's a running back. He makes big plays. And he's one of the only running backs that does that. I don't even want to label him a running back. He's a weapon. Like Travis Kelce.
Multi-purpose.
He's a multifaceted offensive player. Travis Kelce, I don't really want to label him a tight end. He's a weapon. And to me, Barkley has a lot of value. I understand that running backs break down. I'm not giving him a Zeke contract. I'm not giving him 6 years.
Yeah.
But if he plays at an MVP level, which that's
3-year deal, I'm on board for that.
4-year deal with the ability to get out after 3 with like no dead cap hit if you structure the contract a certain way. But yes, a 3-year commitment. If he plays at an MVP level this year, and say we move off of Jones, you think about the value he could provide for a young quarterback coming into the league. It would be very valuable to have a weapon like that.
Which, by the way, when they drafted him, just a little backstory here, the idea was to take some of the onus off of Eli, who was getting up there in age. So the scenario you just described could very well come to fruition if the Giants move off of Jones, bring in a young quarterback. This, having somebody like Saquon could eventually take some of the onus off of a rookie who's trying to get his feet wet and get himself settled. So that was the whole intent, I think, behind bringing Saquon in. And,
exactly. And maybe if Jones succeeds, maybe it'll do it for him. And if he doesn't, maybe the guy they replace Jones with, it'll do it for him. But,
and for the record, I've started playing around with contract numbers and structures. Oh yeah. I'm always doing cap stuff. I don't know why. I'm crazy, I know, but I just like doing that stuff. So if we get to that point, I have an article that's in development, what a potential contract might look like for Saquon. So I'll roll that out. But
I'm gonna throw it out there right now off the top of my head. And this is based off of the assumption he does what LA Sports says he does, which is an MVP level type year. If he could continue this, I would go as high. No higher. I would go 4 years, $60 million, but the ability to get out after 3.
Okay.
4 years, $60 million with only a $4 or $5 million dead cap it after 3 years.
What are you guaranteeing him?
30? I don't know all this.
That might be too low.
20? Or too low, you think? Okay.
Might be a little too low.
40. I'll go 40. But
Right.
I'm willing to give him a 3-year commitment with the contract if he has an MVP year where the Giants really can't get out of it. I'm not going further than that. I'm not going further than that.
I'm going with a structured guarantee, by the way, and you'll see what I mean. If he continues to play onward, it's a tactic the Bills used a lot with their big money contracts, and I could see Shane using them with Saquon if he resigns him, and Daniel if he resigns him. Certainly with Andrew. I think it makes sense. I'm surprised the Giants didn't use this tactic, as a matter of fact, in some of their big money contracts in the past, because they would have saved themselves a lot of grief. But
I'm going to say this, and this is just going because that's what we do as content creators, as writers for the team. You think about scenarios of what the New York Giants could be presented with at the end of the year. So if they are presented with the scenario where they decide we're going to stick with Jones for a year, they're not in a position to draft the quarterback. Jones has a good year. I think, a lot of people have said the franchise tag. For me, it's not the franchise tag, because with the franchise tag, you can't manipulate the salary. You can't move cap around. You got to commit, what is it, like 32, probably 31?
If you're going to franchise anybody, you franchise Saquon at something like 10.
$9 million. Now,
Yeah.
Saquon will play on that.
You do not franchise Daniel.
Yeah. But with Daniel, what I do, if I'm keeping him, I do exactly what the Raiders did with Carr.
Exactly. That's my model.
He got, I think it was like 3 or 4 years. When you heard the contract, it was outrageous. It was like $35 and $40 million a year. And everybody said, oh my God, you give it to Carr. Do yourself a favor. Look at Derek Carr's contract.
That's exactly what I'm honed in on.
Derek Carr's contract this year, because of the way they spread about the money, he's only going $20 million against the cap this year. And next year only is a $5 million dead cap hit. So you're only committing $25 million to the quarterback position. And if he does not take a jump, you cut him, you draft a quarterback. That, to me, is the much better approach, because you can move around than doing a franchise tag for Daniel Jones. And
you also take a look at how the Bills structured Josh Allen's contract with the tiered guarantees.
Right.
Which is what I was referring to earlier with, why the Giants haven't used that before. I don't know, but really creative way to manage and keep your cap without, getting out of control. But all right, Amazing Guy asked, will Robinson be out only this week or more? I have a feeling it's going to be a couple weeks. Could he be back for Monday Night Football? You never say never, but depending on, again, what kind of surgery he had. Did they do it arthroscopically? Did they have to cut him open? If they cut him open, I think he's going to be at least a month, because having had surgery to the core, you can't twist. And when you can't move your core, boy, does it make a difference. So I don't know what he had. I also don't know, did the appendix burst? So there's a lot of factors that I can't answer. But this week, possibly more. My guess is at least 2 games.
I'm just speculating. He may be asking about Wan'Dale Robinson.
Oh, were you asking about Ron? All right. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about.
I don't know. I'm just guessing.
I thought you were talking about Aaron Robinson. If you were talking about Wan'Dale, I'll answer that question too. The Athletic reported that it wasn't a serious injury, but I remember seeing that Robinson said something about he didn't feel like his knee was stable.
Okay.
So could it be, is it going to be more than a week? I don't know. See, I don't know. Is it the MCL? Is it what exactly did he sprain, or what exactly is injured? If it's the MCL and it's a grade 1 sprain, maybe he's 1 to 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. If it's something greater or a bigger, a grade 3 or 4, could be longer. So we don't really know. I don't think they specified. They just said knee. They didn't specify MCL, ACL, PCL, whatever. So kind of hard to say. I think there's optimism. I mean, watching him walk around the locker room, he didn't really have a limp.
Okay.
So I don't think it's anything major. But, until he gets out there and starts running and doing everything, I'm going to say at least a week, maybe a second week. But the good news is they got 10 days or something like that after this Sunday's game, before their next game. They got a little extra time.
8 days.
8 days. Okay.
Yeah, more than
they got a little extra time.
Yeah.
So maybe that will help. Fingers crossed, you would think. So,
Hopefully.
All right. Tally ran 1. What decibel noise can the Giants crowd reach on Sunday? All right. Interesting question. I sit in the press box, and the press box is considered soundproof from the crowd, which it's not really soundproof. We can still hear the crowd. but I've been in the press box since the stadium opened.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for the playoff game. I remember for the it was 2011, I think it was the game against Atlanta. It was so loud that we could not only hear the crowd through the soundproof glass, we could feel the vibration, and it was just, oh man, it was wild. So I think if the Giants, and here's the thing, Giants got to get off to a fast start. If they come out and they turn the ball over, or they let the Panthers march down the field, that's going to take the crowd out of it.
Right.
So if the Giants can get off to a fast start and keep the Panthers at bay, I could see it getting really loud, like playoff level type of loud. What decibel? I don't know, because I'm not familiar with that stuff, but I could see it getting loud.
I think it's, if, like you said, if the Giants show up, they don't even need to necessarily win the game. Hopefully we do. But if they show up and this game is close and it's competitive throughout the game, I think you're going to see a very loud stadium on Sunday. Because I think the fan base is invigorated. I think they like so far what they've seen from Dable. I think they like what they've seen from Wink. And I think the fan base is encouraged with the fight that this team showed week one, coming back from that 13-point deficit. So if the Giants give the fans something to cheer about on Sunday, you're going to hear it on the TV. I do think you're going to hear a very loud crowd.
We might need earplugs in the press box, because remember, it's soundproof, but it ain't that soundproof. So, all right, Evan Spitzberg, will Shane Lemieux be the starter at left guard after he comes back from IR? To be determined.
Yeah, I think it depends on Ojulari. I think it depends on Ojulari.
Right. I mean, if Ojulari is playing well, can you justify making a change? I don't think you can.
Why would you?
Why would you? Exactly. So to be determined.
You know,
I think that's to be determined. Definitely. Just want to put this up from Afghanistan. Can't think he, being Aaron Robinson, would be out more than a week for an appendix, but it could be more. Again, Afghanistan depends on how it was removed and what exactly went through. You know, if it was arthroscopic, yeah, I mean, I've had arthroscopic surgery done to my middle, and I was up and running and doing all kinds of stuff within a week. So yes, but usually an appendectomy is considered major surgery, but that's if they slice you open, and we don't know if they did or didn't do that. You'd like to think that they went arthroscopic, because that's the newer way to do it, and it also cuts down on the healing time, but we don't know. Joe Burrow came back, I think, within a month, like I said, from having an appendectomy. So
yeah, I see people saying it in the chat. I know you're a Mets fan. Mets are winning.
Yes, Mets are winning. I meant to put that up on the screen, by the way.
So hopefully, let me ask you this: if the Mets make the playoffs, you're going to go to a game?
Oh man, I would love to.
I think I'm going.
I would love to. I really would. Would you believe I have never been to Citi Field?
We're making the playoffs, but yeah.
Would you believe I have never been to Citi Field?
You've never.
And there's a story. There's a story behind this, actually. For those who don't know, my late father, was a huge, huge Met fan.
Right.
And when I was little, actually, my brother and I, when we were kids, every summer he would take us to about 3-4 games. And this was at the old Shea Stadium. This is how old I am. I'm dating myself. I know that. And when Citi Field opened, he always said, "Oh, we got to get tickets. We got to go to a game." Well, then my father unfortunately got sick, and we never got around to going to a game. My brother, he and I. And I always felt weird about going to Citi Field to see the Mets without him, because I felt like I would be,
Yeah, I get that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but I think, after my father, actually, September 19th, he will have been gone, 4 years? What is this? This is Daniel Jones's 4th year?
Yeah.
He's been gone as long as Daniel Jones has been the quarterback. So he'll be gone 4 years. And I think I should get over it now. And I'm sure he would want me to. He'd be like, "Oh, go ahead. I don't care." So, but I would love to go.
Now, if the Mets ever win this year, that's gonna be the first thing you think about.
Yeah.
If they ever find a way to win this year, but yeah, I mean, it's sad. Obviously, everything that happened with your father, but it's great that you'll think about him when the good things happen to the New York.
Absolutely. I
and
mean,
hopefully we win it this year, because
he always used to say, "I hope I see them win it one more time in my lifetime," and they didn't.
Yeah.
And again, if it weren't for my dad, I wouldn't have gotten into football. I wouldn't have gotten into baseball or hockey or any of that stuff. My brother wouldn't have gotten into basketball. He's a big Knicks fan, my brother. I like the Rangers. So, that we kind of followed his lead, and it was something special we were able to share with him, his love of sports. My brother followed my father into golf because my father liked to golf. He wasn't very good at it, but he golfed. So just kind of a little background on me and how my love of sports came about, for what it's worth.
There you go. We went on a little tangent, but I always like going on tangents. Last week it was food. This week it was a little Mets talk.
Hey, that's okay. Listen, we're human. I'm much more about
You gotta
sports.
have some conversation.
Absolutely. And I could talk about just about any topic too, so I just, and plus sometimes people ask me, they're like, we don't know a whole lot about you. I'm like, well, I've got nothing to hide. I'm not afraid to talk about myself a little bit. I just don't like to brag, but anyway, let's see. Let's get back to some of these questions, because I see they're packing up here. Oh, there was wow, this is how far behind I am. I just found LA Sports' question. That's how far behind I am on these. So let me go here. Let's see. Okay, here's a good one. Deron Osmond, my devil's advocate argument against the Saquon signing. What running back focused offense won the Super Bowl?
Seattle Seahawks. Marshawn Lynch. Marshall Faulk.
But it doesn't happen very often, though.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't happen very often. But you can revolve it on if it's a big-time playmaker. Todd Gurley nearly did it with the Rams, right? They had Jared Goff at quarterback. They went to the Super Bowl. So there are special running backs, I think, that you can revolve an offense around. And I think Barkley is one of those guys. What you worry about is, obviously, running backs have short shelf life. So
yes.
But I definitely think, especially with a running back like him, he could be the focal point of an offense, and you could have a damn good football team if you could build the proper football team. But he's a special player. No, make no mistake about that.
Yes.
He's a special player.
And he's a type of player that Brian Daboll has never had before. Because people say, oh, Daboll doesn't use the running backs all that much. He's never had a healthy Saquon Barkley before.
Yeah.
So, that does make a difference. All right, Tim McElroy, let's flip it from Saquon to DJ. What do you do with Jones if he does well? Okay, we talked a little bit about that. You look at a Derek Carr contract. You don't go crazy with him. I don't think I franchise tag him because of the amount of money involved. If I'm going to franchise anybody, I would do Saquon if need be, just until we get that done. Worst case scenario, if Daniel walks or decides he doesn't want to come back, you've got a quarterback-rich draft class. You're probably, especially if you're drafted in the top 15, you're probably going to get yourself a decent quarterback. And if you need to move up, you put together an Eli Manning type of trade. You don't want to if you don't need to, but I could also see, Joe Shane adding some draft picks. They're going to get, I think, a couple of comp picks next year. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Maybe there'll be a surprise trade somewhere by the deadline.
Yeah.
I don't think Shane's going to rest on his laurels and not look to add to that draft class.
I mean, I think it all depends on how the team's doing. I mean, if we're 6 or 7-0, which I'm not banking on, I don't think the Giants are going to sell, but it depends on how the team's doing at the trade deadline. But yes, if there's players that he deems are not going to be part of the future, and the Giants are kind of, 2-5 or something like that, yeah, I could certainly see them shipping some of these guys out here, getting extra draft capital. Like you said, we're going to have, I think it's 2 comp picks. I think we got a 5th and a 7th.
Yes.
With some of the players that we lost this past year, Austin Johnson actually resulted in a 5th round pick, which is crazy. I never thought he'd get the contract.
I know.
Which worked out for us. But the Jones situation is a tricky one because, like you said, it's a rich quarterback draft class. I think it's going to come down to where we're picking, how Jones plays, and how they evaluate the quarterbacks that they feel like they could potentially pick. If you're not enamored with one of the quarterbacks that you potentially could draft and Jones plays well this year, you do what the Raiders did with Carr. Like we said earlier, you give Jones basically a 1-year extension. And you say to yourself, let's see if he can grow up this. If he does, we'll keep rocking with him. Yeah. If he doesn't, we're in a position next year to take a quarterback. So it's all about setting yourself up right. And you never want to force a quarterback pick. So if Daniel Jones plays well enough this year to get another year, he'll get another year. But I don't think they're going to commit more than a year at a time until such time he takes a monumental leap.
Let me ask you something. We know next year's quarterback class is going to be rich. What about the year after?
You don't know. You don't know. And to be honest with you, we don't know if it's going to be Rich this year. That's speculation, right?
Right.
Anthony Richardson, everybody was saying he was the next Cam Newton. Then he goes out and he throws like 12 for 30 or whatever he did. He embarrassed himself against Kentucky. And suddenly you say to yourself, this guy may stay another year in college. People were saying the same thing about Rattler last year, and then he stunk it up. So you don't know. You got to let the college season play out. You got to see how these quarterbacks play. Of course, I think C.J. Stroud is going to be a hot commodity, but if I'm being honest, I don't think we're going to be picking that high.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So Will Levis, who knows, right? So got to let it play out. You got to see
exactly
how the team feels about these quarterback prospects, where we're picking. There's so many variables. I don't even want to speculate about it right now because we're 1-0.
Yeah,
we got a big game coming up. See if we get to 2-0. I'll worry about the draft in the offseason.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Somebody asked me that actually in the mailbag to rank the quarterbacks, and I'm like, first off, I don't get into the college, really deep into the college prospects until January after the season's done. Got my hands full with this team during the course of the year. So, but you just don't know. It's too early, I think, to sit here and rank anybody. What if somebody blows out a knee or just stinks it up, like you said? You can't go that far ahead. So
you don't know. And if Jones goes out there and throws 32 touchdowns and the team wins 10 games,
then it's a moot
point. Going to feel differently about him.
Yeah, it's a moot point. Exactly.
Let's see what happens. All
right. Amazing Guy wants to know, can we expect Tibbs and Azeez for week 3? My feeling is, Tibbs is a little closer than Azeez. So but then again, disclaimer, I did say that, I thought that that Tibbs would be ready for this week. That was the impression I was getting. And his presser on Thursday didn't do anything to damper that as far as I was concerned. But, there was always that doubt because you saw what he was doing and what he wasn't doing during the open part of practice to the media. And he said, I don't know, this is going to be touch and go. I definitely don't think he plays this week. Is Monday Night Football a possibility? Sure. I could see that being a possibility. I'm not so sure Azeez is going to be ready by then. I hope I'm wrong, but I got to see these guys. I usually have a good feel or develop a feel for what's going to happen by Wednesday when I first see that injury report and I see who's moving, who's not, who's doing what.
Mm-hmm.
It's only like 20 minutes that we get to see a practice, but it could tell you a lot. Give you a lot of clues.
For sure. The thing with Azeez, I think we've talked about this. I really attribute these injuries, and it's speculation on my part, big time. But I attribute it to him gaining all that muscle in the offseason, and I think that has something to do with it. I mean, I
agree with you 100%.
He came back looking like the Incredible Hulk, and now he's had multiple injuries now to the lower part of his body. So I fear that this could be a lingering issue this year, and he may miss more time. I'm not saying he's going to miss the season,
right?
But he may miss more time than some fans may think. I hope not. I hope he's back there week 3. I'd be surprised at this point based off the things I've heard.
Yeah,
I think Kayvon's going to be back next week. I
think so too.
I think he's going to play against Dallas. I'm not so sure on Ojulari and when.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and that's a good point. Sometimes getting bigger, and he had to get stronger. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes you can get stronger without getting bigger because the bigger you get, the more you
I always worry about that. I always worry about that.
I do too. And you see guys as they get older, they actually get thinner. They lose a little bit of bulk or weight. They try to get lighter, and there's something to be said there. So I hope we're wrong, but I think I agree with you on that. I think that's a good point for sure. All right, Nicholas Wagner, do you think Golladay is on the roster next year? Nope. I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to use the word shocked because I could see him potentially being back because we only saved $6 million, but I'm definitely leaning that he won't be back. I think because we've talked about it, he doesn't fit the scheme. And I think they're going to feel like they could use that money better elsewhere, even if it is only $6 million. So I don't think they're going to feel like he's going to be in the best long-term interest of this football team. Now, do I think it's possible? Yeah, due to the fact that they're not saving that much money. If he has a good year, I think he's back. But
but you know what? Chris? I mean, they've already showed they ripped the bandage off with Logan Ryan, and they didn't save that much.
Good point.
They did the same thing with Blake Martinez. I don't think Shane's going to use that as say, "Oh my God, I'm not saving a lot."
He's got to produce. He's got to produce.
He's got to produce. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And if the scheme's not a fit for him or for whatever reason, or he has
It's probably better for him. I mean,
yeah,
rather than stay here and try to fit a square peg into a round hole, go to a team
exactly.
where
Exactly.
you
Get
fit.
somebody in who fits what the coaches want to do.
Yeah.
All right, Mets score update 3-1, according to Duran Osman.
Let's
I'll
go.
try and keep that score.
Let's
I
go
give you
Mets,
updates or
baby.
something.
I think we only got 17 games or 16 games left after tonight. So we're getting down to the nitty-gritty.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Tim McElroy, what is the status on Nick Gates? Boy, am I glad you asked that, Tim, because I had a nice conversation with Nick yesterday, as a matter of fact. Super guy. I absolutely love Nick.
I met Nick.
Isn't he the most awesome person?
Yeah, I went to
he is so nice.
For Fan Fest, Bobby and Justin with John Boy, they set up like a tailgate before, and they're pretty close with him. Like he's come on their channel.
He's wonderful.
He's awesome. He showed up.
Yeah.
Picture individually with everybody there.
He is a good dude.
Showed up in his Jeep. He was wearing like sandals, and he is, like you said, he's very humble. Seems like a really nice guy. Wasn't as big as I thought he would be. Don't get me wrong, he's big.
Yes,
but I thought he, an offensive lineman, I thought he'd be bigger. But some of that might have to do with the fact that he's rehabbing from an injury. But really nice guy. Really nice.
He's awesome. But to answer the question, Nick has been working his tail off. He's been, working with pushing, doing resistance drills, pushing heavy weights and stuff like that. I think there's confidence that he will be back. Will it be this year? Maybe not. But my gosh, this guy is doing everything in his power. And I mean everything.
When you think about Nick Gates, you think about a football player.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
I was kidding. I'll tell you a behind the scenes story, kind of cute. So since getting COVID, my doctor said, until you get the booster shot, wear a mask in the locker room because, we're in a huddle. So she doesn't want me getting sick again. If God forbid somebody's carrying it and doesn't know it. So I'm the only person really walking around in the locker room with a mask on. And yes, do I feel a little self-conscious? Yes. But, I'm like, screw it. I'm not getting sick again. So I go up to Nick and I feel, I don't know why, but I feel like I have to apologize for wearing a mask. And he's like, don't apologize. And then he says to me, is somebody giving you grief about wearing a mask? I said, no, why? He says, because if somebody's giving you grief, you tell me. I got you.
He's gonna go at him like he did Aaron Donald.
Oh, he is so he's Nick's one of my guys. I absolutely
love the guy. You can tell, man.
He's just amazing. He works.
He's a fan favorite. He's one of those.
He really is. And you root for those guys. We're not supposed to root in the media, but how can you not root for somebody like that?
Yeah, and like you said, he's worked his tail off, and I hope, and he's obviously well respected. He was named the captain.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I hope he comes back and gets an opportunity. I'd like to see him at the guard spot. I think that's his more natural position. I know he did a decent job at the center last year. I'd prefer him at the guard.
Me too.
And maybe he replaces Glowinski in a couple of years at that position. Yep. But I'd like
it's the last year of his contract too, which is interesting.
Yeah, so we'll see.
So,
but I hope
can see them bringing him back. If he's on track to come back, I could see him getting another contract. I hope he does. I really do.
Expect it, but to answer his question, for this year, I don't expect to see him.
I don't either. I think if we do, then that'll be a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I don't
be
expect
honest with you,
but I hope we do.
Yes, I agree. All right, Manifesto INS just got off a 15-hour workday. So glad to have you guys streaming live. Have a Friday night adult beverage. This one is well deserved. All right, Nanny, thank you for checking in. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody who's on the stream with us. This is great. Our first Friday night stream. I wasn't sure how well this was going to be received on a Friday night because I know people. Huh?
Yeah, I think they like it. I think.
Yeah, I mean, well, I just know a lot of people. They go out and they hang out with friends and stuff like that. So I didn't know what the story would be.
I'm having fun with you tonight.
So, I'm having fun too. Hell.
Yeah, I mean, and Manny, if you want to swing by Bad Dogs, I'm going to be on his channel in a half hour too. So you
all right, cool. I got to finish up some articles for tomorrow. But if I finish up early, then I'll swing.
15 hours, man. Sit back, relax, drink a couple of beers, and hang out.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So the Phillies 2-1, bottom of the fifth. I think somebody asked about that, and Fabian says the Braves are losing. So that's just our baseball update. I love this. We're getting baseball updates too. We're doing it all on this show. I love it, man. I absolutely love it. Okay, let's see what other. Now, some people are talking about calf injuries because I think somebody said, "Oh, it's a calf injury. How bad could it be?" calf injuries can be really bad, guys, because that's, what's attached to the calf, the Achilles. So you got to be careful with that.
Yep.
Because if you try to push it with the calf, you tend to change your gait and you put your Achilles at risk, and you're asking for bigger trouble.
Soft tissue injuries can be devastating.
They are devastating. So don't dispute the fact that it's a calf injury. I tweaked my calf once, and let me tell you something. Just to go up and down the steps was a challenge. I had to literally take the weight off my foot to walk up and down the steps. So it was terrible. So, all right. Fabian wants to know, why can't we super chat or member? Fabian, Locked On Network believes that we don't do that. So we advertise that we're free and available to. Yeah. They say we're free and available to everybody. So they don't want us doing that. But listen, as far as I'm concerned, you're all super chat members and whatnot. Those of you who are regulars here. And I try to get to all of you. I know sometimes the comments come in a little faster than I can keep up with. But if ever we don't get to your question, you can always email me and I'll pick it up on a Twitter Tuesday or something like that. So don't feel like I'm ignoring you. I'm not ignoring you. Sometimes we just get a lot of stuff that come in. You can see I'm behind, how I missed LA Rossity's comment earlier that Chris picked up. That's how behind I am. And I don't want to zip through it. I'm looking through as I talk to see if there's a question. So that's the long answer, obviously. All right. Somebody asked a question about number one receiver. And this is Nick's response, Nicholas Wagner's response. Who's the number one receiver on this Giants team? Can we say it's still Golladay?
I mean, I'll answer this in two parts, Nicholas. I don't think there's a long-term number one on this team.
Yeah.
I think if Jones stays on, like if I had a crystal ball right now and you said, Chris, Jones has a pretty good year, he's going to stay on, I think they address corner and free agency. I think they draft a first-round wide receiver because I don't think they feel they have a long-term number one on this team. Obviously, they don't seem to be enamored with Tony. And I don't honestly feel Tony, and I know some Giants fans would disagree with me on this. I don't think he's a number one. I think he could definitely be a very good number two, but I don't think he's a one. And I don't think Wando Robinson's a one.
Yeah.
Or projects to be a one. And Golladay, like we said, he's not long to be here much longer. If I had to say who's the number one on this team, when he's completely healthy in this scheme, I'd slightly lean Tony. But I might even go as far to say that the number one threat in the passing game is Saquon Barkley. And I've said that before the year started, and I still kind of feel that way. But if I had to pick a wide receiver that's the number one when he's completely healthy, I'd lean Tony. But I don't think we have a number one. And like I said, if Jones is back next year, I think we're drafting a first-round wide receiver.
I could see it.
I really believe that.
I could see it. Definitely. All right. One Telly ran one. You're both awesome. Thank you. No, thank you for coming on. We appreciate you. You've been here. I think you've been on this stream since the beginning, if I'm not mistaken. So thank you to everybody who's been hanging in there with us. Really appreciate it. Let's see. Papa Guzzo wants to know, if Wan'Dale Robinson balls out this year, do you trade Tony? This is an interesting question because I know the Giants want to make it work with Tony. But if this guy keeps getting injured, who's going to trade for him?
Here's my issue, and I understand it for sure. That's what I was going to say. People that say, just trade Tony, the value's got to be there.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he's still a guy that has potential. We all see it. He definitely has potential. There's a reason he won in the first round, but for as much as Giants fans hype him up and see the potential, he hasn't produced at the NFL level yet. He's got 400 career receiving yards or whatever it is, and half of that came in one game, basically, against the Dallas Cowboys last year, in a game in which the Giants were down by like 30 points at one point, and they were in prevent defense. So, and I understand he looked great in that game. I'm not trying to discount what he did, but I don't think there's a market for Kadarius Tony, especially if the Giants were going out of their way to trade him. That lowers his market even more so. So I don't think he's going to be traded until such time he starts to produce a bit. Maybe that ups his market. So I think you ride it out with Tony. He's not making a ton of money. He's still on a rookie salary. I think he'll be back next year, unless they are just completely off put by him.
Yeah.
maybe then they move on. But I just think there's too much talent there to just give up on them.
Yeah. You don't give up on talent. I know it's an old cliche, but I'd be surprised if they move him. I really would. But
Yeah.
JJ, guy hasn't done a thing, play hurt. Come on, JJ. Come on, man. You want the guy to play hurt and get worse?
They got 8.5 sacks last year. He set the Giants rookie record.
Come on, JJ. You know better than that. I know you do. Play hurt. Would you go to work hurt or sick or something like that? Come on, everybody's human. I know what you're saying. You're frustrating. You want these guys on the field. We all do, but you can't be stupid. You got these guys. Got to, I love it when athletes used to say, "Oh, I'll be out there next week," and you knew that they were just saying that. And it's like, don't be stupid, man. You can tell when somebody's, oh my God, I've got a hangnail versus, oh my God, I've got a high ankle sprain and I literally can't stand up on 2 feet. Guys can't be stupid like that. This is their career, their livelihood.
Yeah.
So you just
and
can't go that way.
He's a long-term piece too.
Yes.
He's not a guy that you just want to throw to the wolves and not to say that you don't care. You want all these guys to stay healthy, but he's a guy that you're hoping you project to be on this team in 7 years. Same with Kayvon Thibodeaux, same with, Andrew Thomas, same with Evan Neal. These are guys that you project to be long-term pieces of this team. You don't want to force him out there. I think the Giants mismanaged Saquon Barkley. If we want to go back to him early on in his career in 2019, when he got hurt, they said it was supposed to be a 6 or 7 week recovery time. They brought him back up to 2 or 3 weeks. I thought it was a massive mistake on their part.
Mm-hmm.
Guys that are supposed to be franchise cornerstones of your team early on in their career, you don't want to run the risk of unnecessarily, because you're always going to run the risk of them getting hurt, but unnecessarily potentially jeopardizing their careers more so than they would if they were completely capable of going out there and playing. So you got to play it safe with Thibodeaux. You got to play it safe with Ojulari. These guys are supposed to be long-term pieces for this football team.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to go a few more minutes because then I know Chris has to get ready for his show with Bad Dog, so I don't want to keep him indefinitely, even though we're having a great time. I'm having fun. I don't know if you're having fun, Chris,
absolutely.
But I'm having a ball. This is awesome. I mean, tell us, guys, do you guys like these Friday night, live broadcasts? If you do, we'll try and do them every week if we can. Although we got Monday Night Football, we could probably do something a little different, but we'll figure that out when we get a little closer to that. But all right, let's see. Amazing Guy wants to know if there's a Peart update. I don't think we're going to see Peart this year. I think this is a redshirt year for him. Next year, maybe, but not this year. I mean, he's coming along. He's doing the resistance exercises and stuff. Where they push like this big cart that's filled with weights and stuff. But I just have a feeling he's going to be a red shirt this year.
I'm going to be honest with you, and I hope I'm wrong because I'm rooting for the kid. I don't think I'm going to give you a hot take. I don't think Peart ever sees the field again as a Giant.
I would not be. Look, I'm trying to be optimistic for the kid. He's a good dude.
But
I think this is a red shirt year, and what happens beyond that.
I think last year was very telling for Peart. You had the offensive line coach, which was a dick move, by the way. I didn't mean to use that word, but a jerk move, by the way, for him to come out and say what he said about Peart late in the year. But he basically said he was too soft to play.
Which, by the way, David Turner, who comes and does my game day after, kept saying, and a lot of people kept, bashing David for saying that Peart was soft. But anyway, sorry to interrupt.
He literally came out and said that. Maybe I'm paraphrasing a bit. And the fact that in his second year, when Dave Gettleman basically came out and said, we're letting the youngsters play. That's why we didn't draft any offensive linemen. The fact he couldn't beat out Nate Solder.
That was telling.
Who had not played on the right side since his rookie year, who had not played an NFL snap for over a year due to COVID. He couldn't beat him out at the tail end of his career. That told me everything I need to know about Matt Peart.
Yep.
This guy's not long to be a starter in the NFL.
Yeah, totally agree. Floyd Black with a compliment. Thank you, Floyd. Hopefully after 30 years, I have an idea what I'm doing. And, I recently came under fire, I think, from a poster on my channel saying, oh, do you watch film? Do you know what you're doing? Yeah, I did study, I took a couple semesters at the Scouting Academy. I'm trying to better myself. I'm not saying I know everything, have all the answers, but I do try and learn the game and the intricacies of the game. And I try to ask intelligent questions, not always happening. So I do the best I can. But thank you for the kind words. And as Jordan said here, like and subscribe. It's a great channel. Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate that. Yes, please like and subscribe the channel.
That is a real Italian, by the way. He's got obviously Ziminides is as Italian as it gets.
Yeah, hey, I'm Italian.
I'm half
you're Italian, so
but then on top of that, he's got a picture of the Colosseum. So I think he's like legit from Italy. That's my prediction.
We're missing. I noticed we're missing Tutu.
I saw him pop in briefly. He was here.
Oh, did he? Okay, he's in Italy, isn't he? So he's
he's
probably asleep right now. I would think, right? Or
he doesn't sleep. He's crazy.
Aren't we all? If you think about it.
Oh, we're all crazy.
All right, let me just see. All right, so a couple more, and then I'll let you go because I know you got to get ready for your next show. How will the weather be like at MetLife Stadium? I didn't even look, but
I'm gonna look it up right now. Actually, that's a great.
Yeah, I don't think there's rain in the forecast. I don't think. I hope there's not at any rate. Not that it matters because I would think rain or shine, Giant fans are going to be out. They're going to be out in full blast.
It's beautiful weather. 1 o'clock, it's supposed to be 80.
Nice.
0% chance of rain. 10-mile-an-hour winds. So ideal weather conditions to go to the game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So now all we need is a win. Absolutely. Get a win. All right. Real quick. M62 626 M is Sterling back next year. No, he's got a voidable year in his contract, so I think they're going to move on from him, which is a shame. Like I said, good guy, a team player, everything you want. Took the pay cut in stride, shut his mouth, shows up to work. I'm going to miss Sterling when he eventually moves on. I don't think he's back next year. I'd like to see him back, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, the only way I could see him back, it would have to be a really cheap deal, and it would have to be a situation probably where they move on from Tony, which I don't think they're going to do, because I don't really, as much as I love Shepard, they drafted Wan'Dale Robinson to replace Shepard. Let's just be honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
That's their guy. They spent the second round.
I think so too.
And Shepard's had injury problems, and he's not a part of this regime. Shepard has lasted through Jerry Reese and Dave Gettleman. Now he's with Coach Dean, but
and look at all the head coaches he survived.
Yeah, and as much as I love Shep, I'd be surprised if he's back next year.
But you know what? That speaks to what I was talking about with Shep being a team player, that he lasted through all the head coaches that he did and the regimes that he did. Because make no mistake about it, sometimes players, when you ask them to take a pay cut, they kind of sulk and they're like, they lose something. They lose some pep in their step. You don't see that with Shepard.
No.
So that's a true.
I love him to death. I love him to death.
I love him to death too.
But
super guy. We always used to tease him. I'll tell you a locker room story.
Yeah.
He always used to have this lawn chair in front of his locker. Now I didn't see it this week, but he always used to sit in this lawn chair and he'd be sitting out there, kind of like this, leaning back, like an old man would on a sunny day. And we'd walk by, and one day I said to him, "Shep, man, what's with this setup?" And he just looked up at me, and he's looking around, and he goes, "Where's my drink? Who took my drink?" So one of the rookies or one of the younger players is like, "Yeah, he's the old man in the group," and Shep's just like playing it to the tilt, and it was so funny. But
I think I'll say this: if I could interview, then I would never get this opportunity unless I somehow became, had what you have in terms of the access to the players. But if I could ever interview one player on the Giants on this current team, I think it would be Shep because of his personality. I think it would make for a very fun and interesting interview.
He's great,
and everything that he's been through too. If there was one player in this current team, probably Thibodeaux too, because he's definitely got like a personality.
Thibodeaux is actually quiet, believe it or not.
Really,
very, very. I was talking with him. He's got a locker next to Ojulari Jackson, and we were talking, and once in a while that peppiness comes out. But he was, I don't know if it was because it was the first time I was really talking to him one-on-one, but he was very quiet and reserved. And I told him, I said, "Oh yeah, I said, I'm kind of a Ducks fan," and he lit up. He's like, "Oh, right." So but nice guy. But Shepard,
Evan Neal seems like literally like from
scholarly.
And from the interviews I've seen with Evan Neal, he just literally seems like he sleeps with a football next to his head at night, next to his pillow, and he wakes up and he just thinks about football.
Oh
That's
my
that's the
goodness.
impression I get with Evan Neal.
Well, him and both
Alabama.
him and Andrew Thomas, the two of them are, you call them bookends. They're kind of identical in that regard. They're very deep thinkers when it comes not just to life, but football.
Yeah.
And they're alike, but they're different. And what a pairing. I really, really like that pairing a ton. All right, let's take a couple more, and then I'll get you out of here because I know you got to get ready for Bad Dog. Let's see. Coach Dable. I'm sure this is not the real Dable. First round pick for us if Jones stays between cornerback, wide receiver, interior O-line, and linebacker. Got to be cornerback or receiver, I would think, right? I mean, it depends on free agency.
Depends on where we're picking too.
Yeah,
Right?
and where we're picking,
If we're
exactly.
picking at like 24, which I don't think we will be. Interior offensive line becomes a possibility. But Joe Shane is a guy that I think is definitely going to highly prioritize positional value, as he demonstrated in this year's draft, where he took a tackle and an edge. I don't think he'll take a center in the mid to early first round, unless they have to be like an unbelievable prospect.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and like you said, it's too hard to predict that because we're gonna have a little bit of money this year. So it depends how he fills the holes in free agency. If I had to guess, I think they're probably, and this is just throwing a dart at the board right now, but if I had to guess, I think they're probably going to sign an interior offensive lineman in free agency, like more of like a long-term guy. I'm not talking
Well,
about
they're going to have to. I mean, because Feliciano's only signed to this year.
Yeah. I don't know who it is. I haven't looked at it.
They're going to have to do something. I'd like to see them draft a center, a guy who's played it in college.
I would like to see them do both. I'd like to sign, whether it be a center or guard, to be a guy that could be here for 2 or 3 years, and draft a guy that could potentially, be a long-term solution. So I'd like to see them do both. But in the first round, if it's not quarterback, again, they could sign a corner. It's possible. But if they don't, corner is obviously probably the biggest need.
Yeah.
And wide receiver. I think those are the two most likely if they're not going quarterback.
All right. Tutu checks in. See, I mentioned his name and he popped up. Tutu, it's not a show without you, man. Good to see you, my friend.
A hell of a body on him. Look at that. I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
Hey, you after your weight loss, man, you pretty soon you'll be.
I got a ways to go before I look like Tudo.
Oh goodness! All right, well, folks, I got to let Chris go. He's got to get ready for a show with Bad Doggy. Who one day, I don't even know if he follows me or not. Everybody says, "Oh, you got to have Bad Dog on."
We'll have you on one of our streams one night.
Yeah, I think I'd like that.
When we do our show one night, we'll have you on. We'll do like a triple dip.
Okay, that would work. So anyway, folks, I want to thank you all for coming out on this live stream. I hope you enjoyed it. If I didn't get to your question, please pop it in an email to me. The information's in the show notes. It's LockedOnGiantsPodcast@gmail.com. We're going to have a Twitter Tuesday coming up next week. David Turner is going to be on the show Monday. We're going to wrap up the Giants Panthers game as we've been doing every week. Wednesday, I'm not sure what I'm doing Wednesday. Thursday is going to be the crossover show with the Cowboys, McCool and who's the other one? Oh goodness, Landon McCool and his name's goodness.
I got one question for you before we close this out.
I can't remember the other Cowboys host. Isn't that terrible? But go ahead. What's your question?
I need a final score from you.
Oh, you would ask me that. Julian Council asked me that on the crossover show, and I don't think I gave a final score. All right. I'm going to say by the way, Marcus Mosher is the other Cowboys host. Now I just remembered.
I know. I follow him on Twitter.
Yeah, Mark, how can I forget Mark? Oh, I know why I forgot him, because he doesn't think Eli Manning's a Hall of Famer. That's why I forgot him.
I'm going to unfollow him on Twitter now.
Yeah, Marcus and we had a whole debate. We actually did a show online.
I used to follow you. I thought you gave good information on Twitter. You just lost a follower. You cannot say that about Eli Manning, but go ahead.
I know. All right, score. I'm going to say 27-24 Giants. Okay. I think it's going to be a close one, but I'll tell you, I want to put an asterisk on this. Whoever has the ball last, I think, is going to pull it out. That's how I see this kind of unfolding.
Yeah, I'm going to go, and I like your score. I'm going to give you my reasoning. I'm going to go 23-21 Panthers, but okay. I have a reason for it.
Go ahead.
If my life was on the line, I'm picking the Giants. I want to say that because I think they're going to win, but I'm very superstitious. You're talking to a guy that during the Giants 4-game winning streak, I didn't change my hoodie for 4 weeks. So last week I picked against the Giants and they won. So even though I honestly in my heart believe they're going to win this game, even though I think it could go either way, I definitely think it'll be a close game. Because I picked against them and they won, I'm going to do it again and see if we can get some mojo going. So I'm going to go 23-21 Panthers to keep that winning streak alive.
I love it. I love the superstitions everybody has. I used to do that when I was growing up. I used to do that. Like there was a stretch. Matter of fact, during the Super Bowl season, on the first Super Bowl season, I used to have chicken Caesar salad every day for lunch on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And I got sick of it, but because the Giants were winning, I just kept it up because everybody's was like, you can't change it up. You have to keep eating chicken Caesar salad. I'm like, but I'm tired of it.
If it ain't broke, I'll wear the same underwear for 3 months if the Giants keep winning. I don't care. I'll do it. I'll do it. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes is right. All right, my friend, this was a lot of fun. Thank you all for coming. Check out the LockedOn Giants podcast. Monday, David Turner. Twitter Tuesday. Wednesday, to be determined. Thursday, Mosier and Landon McCool. And then Friday, hey, Chris, maybe we do this again?
What do you think, chat? Next
we'll
Friday.
Do it again, guys?
What do you think? I think they like it.
I think so, too. All right, we'll work it out. Maybe we do another nighttime show and then we just keep it rolling, especially if the Giants keep winning.
Getting into the Cowboys game. Let's hope.
Yep, absolutely. All right, everybody. Have a good night. Chris, I'll talk to you soon.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Bye, everybody.